This episode is brought to you by CBS All Access. If you don't already subscribe to CBS All Access, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/CBS. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello, and welcome to this exciting episode of the Star Trek Picard cast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Ruthie.
And tonight, we will be covering Season 1, Episode 7, titled Nepenthe. At least I think that's how you say it.
I have no idea if that's how you say it, but that's how I said it.
Yeah.
I think that's how they said it in the episode.
I think that's how they said it, yeah.
They said it differently on the Ready Room, and I was like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Before we get started, we have feedback for prior episodes, but I want to just remind people that we have chapters in this recording, so you can skip ahead. If you want to skip the stuff about last episode and prior episodes, you can skip ahead to in the chapter to us discussing this. The reason why I bring this up is, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of feedback this week. In fact, we have a lot of feedback for the prior episodes too. So just want to let you guys know, but you probably already know this. You're looking at the recording going, what the heck? Why is this so long? Well, anyway, that's why. But let's get started and open hailing frequencies. Okay, so our first bit of feedback is for last week, and it is from a friend of the show, Cyberman.
Hi, Brian and Ruthie. This is Cyberman for Star Trek Picard, Episode 6. I really loved this episode. The show continually explores different ways of problem solving, different ways of approaching the world, different ways of treating each other. And what I mean by that is you can start with the example of the two approaches. The initial approach to the Romulan supernova was Starfleet was going to lend assistance, so they were going to create an ally. But when they gave in to their self-serving needs after Mars, understandable or not, basically they turned that ally into an even worse enemy. So it's two approaches. Now you can move on to present day. You have the XBs on the artifact. You have the Romulan approach, which is treating them quite brutally and just harvesting parts. And then you have the approach that the Enterprise crew showed you. If you show them compassion, you can learn a lot more about the technology. As you demonstrated, the XBs know quite a bit about that Borg cube, but they're not going to share it with the Romulans, who are their jailers. So two different approaches. You also have Picard and Raffi. Picard and Raffi both suffered significant trauma. They both handle it in very different ways. Picard has had his duty, and he has dignity, and he's not self-destructive. Raffi is self-destructive. Again, there's two different ways of handling trauma. But then you also have Rios, who I keep saying is a Starfleet officer, and this is why. He's a Starfleet officer because an officer in Starfleet, they basically believe what you're saying. They hear what a person is saying and they believe them. They assume it to be true and they investigate accordingly or offer to assist or offer to help accordingly. And that's what Rios does, as opposed to a Romulan who would assume you were lying. So it's two different views of seeing the world and how you interact with people. Because at this point in time, I don't think we can believe anything Dr. Girardi says. I think she might actually be an operative who went to Maddox in the first place for a reason other than just that she adored him. And that even may have been a game. Because when she was talking to Picard, I didn't think it was absolutely necessary to bring up the blow-by-blow of his assimilation, because he was already freaked out about it. And when Elnor, I can't get his name, when Elnor pointed out that she had something to hide, she didn't respond with her usual flighty, afraid, oh. She responded with steely anger. And I also think she went to the bridge to see if Rios had talked to his EMH. And then it was just convenient to completely distract him. And because he did the Starfleet thing, he takes her at face value and he believes what she says and he offered to help. Anyway, thanks, guys. Love the podcast. Hello to all you trekkers out there. Have a great day.
Well, thank you so much, Cyberman, for your voicemail. And I'm curious about some of what you said for this week, whether or not you agree with the same things that you said from last week. So anyway, some interesting things to talk about. I think that Jurati detailing Picard's assimilation was exposition. I think that was basically to remind people of, and people that aren't really familiar with Next Gen, to, explain Picard's past with the Borg, because, there's always going to be some people that either don't remember it or never saw Next Gen. So I think she just happened to be the character to do that. And it made sense for her to do that. And in terms of I don't know. It seems like that was a little insensitive, I would say, but
I think that's probably because maybe she's just a little awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, not to stereotype, but a lot of scientists are.
Yes. Yes, they are. Yeah, that's what I was thinking it was as well. So, do you think Jurati is an operative? Well, we know that Jurati is an operative, but was she an operative going back to Maddox?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. One thing that is new for this week compared to last week is that Ruthie has joined the Novel Readers Club. So you read The Last Best Hope. So how does that change any of your opinions of this show at all?
It doesn't really affect how I'm viewing this show.
Okay.
At all.
Okay. Good enough. We see in that novel, there's more of a backstory there. So I don't know. I don't think that she was an operative. I think that she was an operative from the time of the mind meld, and obviously was conflicted.
Yes.
As you see this week. So
very conflicted.
The Romulans assume you're lying. I would say that is very accurate. And I think Rios, I think that's a good point about him being your Starfleet officer. I mean, he's got that rough exterior, but deep down inside, like Picard said, that's one thing. Picard said some things that in the course of this show haven't been very Picardish. But that's one thing that I would say was Picardish. He could spot a Starfleet officer when he sees one, and he definitely is right about Rios. He's, and I could see, a different reality where Rios would have been great first officer for Picard, much like Rafi was back on the Verity. But we still haven't heard the Verity mentioned on the show, have we? The name of the ship, have we? I don't think so.
If we did, I can't remember it.
Yeah. And of course, yes, the Romulan assumes you're lying. So that's very true. We see that again and again and again. All right. Do you have anything you wanted to say about Cyberman?
I was just thinking that an argument could be made that Picard is being self-destructive. I think it's just maybe self-destructive in a different way.
Selfish destructive.
I guess, but I mean, that's not exactly what I was meaning. I know. The way that he's acting and treating himself is not the normal way. So that we've seen in the past.
Definitely. He's not been himself. And I'm more convinced of that after this episode than I have been at any time. So
yeah, he's not really self-destructive of his health, like Rafi, I think is, but maybe self-destructive of his psyche.
Right.
So
yeah.
But still, he is handling it in a different way.
Yes, he is.
She is. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. With that, I think we'll move on to our second voicemail. So, and get ready, listeners, because this is a pretty long one, but it's a pretty good one. We haven't heard from them all season so far. Mike in Cleveland, who has been a longtime contributor to the Star Trek Discovery podcast. And in this voicemail, we find out why we haven't heard from him, but hopefully we'll be hearing from him the rest of the season. Here we go.
Hello, Brian. Hello, Ruthie. This is Mike in Cleveland. Been a while since I've given any feedback. Well, basically last season of Discovery. Like apparently not too many people, once I found out that the book was coming out, The Last Best Hope, I decided not to start this season of Picard till after I had consumed the book, because it just seemed to me like there'd be a lot of really good information that I would probably need to be able to enjoy this season as much as possible. So of course, that means I had to wait till the season started. I finally got through the book, made it through the episodes, went back, rewatched the first 6 episodes. And then after that, I started listening to the podcast, you guys' roundtable, then your weekly ones to catch up to see where everybody was at. And it seemed to me I might have made the right choice to actually wait, because a lot of what I hear from people when I'm listening, some of the complaints or some of the issues, are stuff that I got the answer to by, doing the book. And that's what I thought was the best way to go. And I feel vindicated by listening to what I've heard people say these last few days, listening to the podcast, and even listening to Brian go from the way he felt after episode 4. I believe that's when he had finally got to read the book, and then hearing him for episode 5 and 6, and both those episodes were really good, but I also thought episode 4 was pretty good. But just hearing his enthusiasm come back to his voice and his broadcast after having consumed the books and got the information there, it seems to have answered a lot of questions and resolved a lot of issues for him. So, it'd be my recommendation to a lot of people out there. It's too late now if you've already started watching the series, so you're probably a little frustrated, but go back and read the books. I didn't do the comics. I don't know what was in the comics. I'm 53 years old. I have a harder time motivating myself to read comic books anymore. But the book was really, really good. There's a lot of information. There's a lot going on. Brian's treating it like spoiler information, so I'm not going to go into any kind of details what's in there. But for a lot of you guys out there, a lot of the problems it sounds to me, a lot of the problems that you guys are having could easily be resolved by consuming the information that's in the books. For me personally, I think episode 5 might have been one of the best Star Trek episodes of any series. I really enjoyed it. I know that was it had that extra 7 or 9 rub to it. But I love that episode. That's going to be one of those that I can watch it at any day, at any time. I won't have to have watched the first 4. It's a great episode. It reminds me of the episode in DS9 season 7 when Nog got injured and lost half his leg. That's one of those episodes I can watch anytime, and I just can enjoy that episode. That one's a little darker than this one was, but that was a great episode. I think episode 6 was awesome. Episode 1 got the easy rub because, it's the first time getting Picard back. I'd had no problem with the length or the storytelling or anything with the episodes in between there. I've just truly enjoyed everything I've seen so far from this. And I really hope everybody else can, if they go back and get the books, they can get over some of the issues they're having, and everybody can, enjoy this as much as I've been enjoying it. As always, I always enjoy listening to the podcast. I always enjoy listening to the feedback. I give a little special shout out to our boy over in Denmark. He felt like he felt a little persecuted on a couple of those shows I've been listening to. Fred, I love everything you do. I love your written feedbacks. I love your audio feedbacks. I think you're a great addition to everything. Every time I hear anything you're doing, so keep your enthusiasm up, buddy. And I like I said, I'm over the road truck driver, so I don't know if I'll be able to stay quite up to the same pace as the shows come out, because I'm 53. I'm not going to watch the shows on my phone. I want to see it on my, I got a big TV in here at my truck. I want to watch it on the TV, but I got to be somewhere with really good internet to do that. But I'll try to keep up for the last 4 episodes. Like I said, I don't really do the Facebook anymore, so I'm kind of missing out on the Facebook page this season. Kind of makes me almost regret my decision to get off Facebook, but not completely. But like I said, I enjoy it. Glad to hear you guys again. Everybody keep going. Hashtag Ruthie's always right. Even though she'd be a little bit more right, she went back and read the book and started enjoying the season a little bit more. Okay, nice speaking to you guys. Talk to you later. Mike in Cleveland. Bye.
Well, that was a great voicemail. I loved hearing it, and hashtag Ruthie's right.
That's my favorite phrase.
Well, you're going to hear that a lot today.
Oh my gosh. It's not true, though. Oh, yeah, well, I try to be right all the time. It just doesn't always work out that way.
I want to say it's because of alliteration. It rolls off. See, you say Brian's right, and everybody's like, well, who cares, right? But
oh god,
yeah. So I mentioned this in the last voicemail. Obviously, he mentioned, like, I agree with him. I think that there's a lot to be said in that book, and Ruthie and I were talking about this today, and like, I think that this would have made an incredible, like, either season 1 and season 2 of the novel, or it could have been like a limited series, like a separate series that happened before this. But it is so good, and I really, really enjoyed it. And now that you've read it, Ruthie, why don't you, what do you think of the novel?
Well, I think you guys are all going to be disappointed. I thought it was a great book, but it doesn't really have any bearing or affect how I feel about the show, how I'm watching the show, because I just personally don't feel like I need to or should have to glean information from sources that are outside of what is presented to me on the screen. And if you have to rely on that to make a good TV show, then you're doing something wrong. So
yeah,
that's just how I feel. I do not appreciate multimedia types of storytelling things. Like, don't expect me to watch a TV show and then go read a book. Because for one thing, my reading pace is somewhat different from other people. It's different, generally speaking, if I'm listening to a book, but I don't necessarily have the same time to listen to a book as I would if I'm watching a TV show. Same thing goes with, like, if you're presenting a comic book and then you want to tell the rest of the story on a TV show. I don't think that's fair, because not everyone has access to the same types of things, or the desire to see the same types of things, or consume, I should say, the same types of media. There's a reason why they're watching it on TV, or there's a reason why they're reading the comic book, or there's a reason why they're reading the book.
Yeah.
And not doing something else. So has it affected my enjoyment of the show? Not really.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good book. It was well written. I enjoyed the characters and the story. That's about all I have to say about it.
And we are going to be talking about the book at some point. So we've been talking about that. So we'll be announcing that shortly. So, but we will be talking about that. So if you want to hear more detail, you will have an opportunity to. But I think that the book helped me kind of smooth over some of the issues that I had. I think I probably would have come to the same conclusions. It just would have taken me longer. So, because I think at this point, especially after this past episode, I kind of realized that certain aspects of the book were they've kind of resolved themselves, or sorry, not of the story, I think, have resolved themselves in my head, because especially I think because of this past episode. I think framing it with Riker and Troi, I think it made me kind of like, there's like the stamp that, you know, kind of like put a stamp of approval on the fact that, you know, the feelings that I've had about Picard are true, and they're real, and they're justifiable. So, but I'll get more into that about 2 hours from now.
Oh my gosh.
I know. But yeah, as far as the comic book, Ruthie hasn't read it. Ruthie's not going to read it. We've talked about that quite a bit, and I understand why. I'll just say that the thing you learn in the comic book, I'm saying this mostly for Mike and Cleveland, but anybody else, it's not really a spoiler to say. You learn about the relationship that Picard has with Laris and Zhaban. That's the big story reveal that comes out of the comic book. So if you want to, and it was a really good 3-volume set of comics. I do recommend it. I recommend the novel more. I think the novel was even better than the comic book, and I'd say it was better by a landslide. So I really, really loved this book. All right. Well, anyway, Mike, hopefully we'll be hearing back from you, and it's great to hear from you. So, okay, next.
Okay, so Nick from Arizona has feedback from Stardust City Rag. He says 2 of 2 savage cuts. His yes is killer crosscuts and holograms. His no is the reptiloid turns your stomach, and Bjayzl has the most obnoxious name and face in Trek, attitude, style. Yes, 7 was kind enough to do us a favor. Blue beams for crowd control, double red for the queen bee. Visual question. What was Bjayzl wearing exactly? Did she have multiple different outfits?
She did. There was a different outfit that she had in the cold open when she meets Maddox. She had these kind of shoulder pads that looked like they were made out of bamboo or something. I noticed. And she had almost like a cat suit on with that, I think. And then she had a different thing on in the main scene. I don't remember like specifics with that, but yeah, she did have a few, at least 2 different outfits, and possibly more than that.
They kind of looked like they were similar though, like they were the same catsuit thing but had different add-ons.
Yeah,
that's kind of how it looked to me.
Yeah, but like the one thing that I really noticed about her were these like really long nails, and you know, she otherwise looked human, but you know, obviously, and yes, a very obnoxious name. Yeah, I'd like to know Kirsten Beyer where she got that name, because it was kind of obnoxious. Yes, but like I said in that episode, she was originally written to be Cation, the cat race that was originally in the animated series, and we've heard them mentioned now and then in different shows and in the movies too. But we haven't seen one in, I think, since Star Trek 4, maybe, or Star Trek 6. I don't know. But certainly not in modern times.
Were they not the same, or what, I should say, were the creatures in Insurrection that were doing the skin treatment?
Oh, that was the Sona?
No, not them. The ones that were
ones that were doing the I don't know.
They kind of look like they were cat people, I'm just saying.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know who they were, but I don't think that they were I don't think that they were Cations, because they were kind of like a servant race, I think, of the Sona. And it's the Baku, right?
Yes. All right, moving on. His feedback for season 1, episode 6, The Impossible Box. He says 1 of 1 ovations for Rafi or Hugh. Yes, Rafi shines so hard here and Free Cloud. If she doesn't get a Rafi on fleek standout moment in a given episode moving forward, we know now it's a missed opportunity. Not good enough. Borg is cancered. Picard sounds out of his depth talking about the Borg on La Sirena and on the Cube. Kind of weird for the OGXB. Visual question. What are the different areas inside the cube? Does Picard see any we're familiar with other than Soji's room? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but I mean, there are the usual things on the cube, like the regeneration.
Yeah, we see regeneration going on, like the walls are moving. But the one thing that I think from the Not Good Enough, you say Picard's out of his depth. He's scared. Like he's like traumatized in this episode that episode about the Borg.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I know that you're visually impaired and perhaps that's not coming through for you in that, or wasn't coming through in that episode, but that's the take is he's not saying is all on his face. And what's on his face is terror. Like he was just really scared, and that's why he couldn't really speak about it intelligently. So that's my take on it. But different areas inside the cube, there's like this corridor, these very narrow corridors. That's kind of where Picard almost falls, and that's why Hugh says that they're trying to catch you or whatever. There are a lot of like rooms in there that are, I don't know, they're not Borg. They're
like retooled Romulan rooms.
Yeah, it's like it's like you're watching Homes and Gardens or what do they call it, HGTV show or something.
Yeah, flip this house or something.
Flip this Borg cube.
Yeah, exactly. Today on Flip This Cube.
Yep.
Oh, gracious me. That's funny. Yep. That's how it is.
But that is how it is. So there's a lot of like, I'd say Romulan rooms in the Borg cube.
Yeah. Restructuring.
Yeah. So they've obviously been in possession of that artifact for, over a decade, I would say, because there's been a lot of changes that have been made to the cube, but still there are areas of it that look very Borg. So it's not
right.
And from the sounds of it, there are still Borg, there are still XBs that are still Borgified that haven't been restored, or reclaimed. So I don't know if that answers your question there, Nick, but hopefully it does. I don't know, but yeah, that is a problem though. There is a lot of visual stuff. A lot of the show is visual, and it can succeed or fail based on those visuals. Bob from the UK is next, and this is actually something that he left in his feedback from last week, but we missed it. So I wanted to give it this week.
What?
Yeah. P.S. My left field prediction, the mystery planet with the 2 red moons is XO3 from TOS episode 107, What Are Little Girls Made Of? Where Roger Corby discovered a lost civilization that could create nearly perfect androids. I also thought it might have been the Mud's planet, the one that, Mud's got all the androids. The same kind of thing that we see in that short trek, The Escape Artist.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. But we'll see.
Rick from Cleveland says from Twitter, I guess. He tweets us, Brian and Ruthie, this is awesome. Might take 150 years to crack the technology just in time for First Contact Day. And he's talking about an article that is talking about another article that came out on September the 24th in 2019 in Universe Today about how warp drive may in fact be possible someday.
Yeah, that's an interesting article that we will have in the Facebook group, and it talks a lot about a lot of work that's pretty much theory at this point, because they would need so much energy to drive the warp drive that, it'd be very difficult to do today. But originally they thought it would take, like, I think all of the energy in the galaxy. Now they're thinking it's like enough energy for Jupiter or something like that. So it's coming down, it's scaling down at least. But yeah, so it talks about the possibility that warp drive could exist based on some theories that were done in the 90s. So it's pretty cool, though. We'll have a link to it. Ken from Chicago is next. He says, at Picard Cast, by the way, Will Wheaton in the hashtag Ready Room asked Jerry Ryan about Seven's past with Bjayzl. Jerry thought the two had worked together as Fenris Rangers, ? But Bjayzl betrayed Seven. Yeah, well, I'd say that much is obvious. The question of whether or not they had a relationship beyond that is still something that people are debating. But I think it's okay for them to debate that. It reminded me of cop shows when a cop betrays another. It's really personal.
Yeah.
And he says, by the way, Commodore O might have told Dr. Jurati to shoot near Picard to warn him of the ambush, then stun a Romulan to get his support. O could have told the Roms, let the human prove her mettle by shooting Picard, then attack even if she faints. If he arrests them, she'd free them. Okay, maybe. O omits telling Dr. Jurati that Romulan weapons don't stun, and omits telling the Roms that Picard's roommates are ex-Tal Shiar and lethal. And maybe their weapon sights are a wee bit off. Make them stormtroopers. I don't know. I do think that they seem to know what they're getting into and are willing to sacrifice themselves. So I don't know. They're extreme, to say the least. The show omits O's secret to get the Doc to turn. Maybe Doc's a synth?
Yeah, I don't think so.
And what are those emojis? There's
looks like a robot and face and the LLAP face.
Yeah.
Or hand.
Spock hand. Then he says, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Even though the initial A is short, we still use the long A for the acronym LASER. Yes. So, and I believe they came up with the one that's similar for phaser, but I don't know what that is right off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. On the other hand, here's the second occurrence of it. Hashtag Ruthie's right. The picture of Locutus is flipped horizontally, so hashtag Picard's right side match.
I still think that Brian's right. Hashtag Brian's right.
Yay!
I don't think that. Besides, it wasn't really me who was saying that.
Yeah,
Let's
it was
clear.
James. Yeah.
I was defending James's position, much to my chagrin. Thanks, James.
But he continues to say, see, Ruthie's right. The scene is shot so the camera is behind the picture. Since it's transparent, it should be flipped like a mirror, so Locutus's laser is on our right, but Picard's left. Hashtag Ruthie's right again.
Oh my gosh.
And then Fred responded, Fred, he has access to our show.
He's from the Netherlands,
yes.
Not Denmark.
Yes.
FYI.
Yeah, I meant to say that. Yeah. Yeah, it's not even a Nordic country.
But I mean, Denmark, the Netherlands, same difference, right, Fred? Right, Fred?
Don't say that.
Right?
Anyway, Fred? Ruthie is telling a funny there. Anyway, so he says, when in a mirror, everything is flipped, then everything from behind, a transparent mirror, is not flipped. Nevertheless, hashtag Ruthie's right again, since she said it was the right side of his face.
But I didn't see that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you said left.
I appreciate you guys so much, but I don't think I was right.
Yeah, hashtag Brian is right.
That's right. Hashtag Brian's right. Oh my gracious.
This is the funny thing though, Ruthie. Whenever, even when you're not quite right, or even if I'm right, you get the credit for it.
I know. I've got you guys trained so well.
I don't know. I think
my gosh.
I think it's funny because I can't. I just was like, well, of course I'm right. I'm always right. So it's like there's no fun there.
That's how I feel. Of course I'm right. I'm always right.
Anyway. All right, that's it for that one. Next.
Okay. Next, we have a little back and forth, started by Steve from Missouri. I have to disagree with Ruthie on how Soji knew about the trajector. This information would have been in the Starfleet database, as Voyager had tried to convince the developers use of the device, so not Borg tech inside Soji. So then James, who is the one who also is setting me up for failure again, said, because I was also explaining another James theory. James, you're on my list right now. So then why would Picard have not known about it? As an admiral, as well as uniquely experienced captain with the Borg, that info would have definitely been relayed to him by Starfleet Intel after Voyager got back, even if it was just on a need-to-know basis. So then Steve replies, I agree that Picard would have had access to that information as well as Soji, but the human mind doesn't retain everything, especially as you age, as compared to Data/Soji. I'm not saying that Soji doesn't have any Borg implants. Just by knowing about the trajector doesn't prove it. I still have a lot of questions regarding the sisters and their true origin. Why did Daj know Picard, but Soji didn't? Why does Narek and Narissa call it a hive? That should be why do Narek and Narissa call it a hive?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure why they are so convinced that there are so many more of them.
I still don't know.
Me either. Don't know. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. James the Augmented Sailor, who we just talked about. Uh-huh. He's on your list. He says, hey guys, just had a listen. Only 2.5 hours? You're slipping. Well, guess what? We're not slipping anymore, are we? I've been totally Mandela affected. In the universe, I just got bounced in from this morning. Locutus had his implant in the left side. Woke up this morning and saw my QMX Locutus figure had been altered to now have the implant on the right, as well as all images online and the best of both worlds 1 and 2. I will find a way to get back to the Locutus implant on the left, though, so I can be right. Wait, I mean left, right? Damn it. LOL. And one thing I didn't do last week that I should have done to show you, Ruthie, is this. If you look in the... Yes, because I have Locutus in my hand right now.
Also has Locutus.
He is what I call Locutie. And I've had Locutie that has been on my desk for, I think, about 25 years, maybe even longer than that. Yeah, so I got him when Playmates first came out with Locutus, so whenever that was.
Wow.
And I have had that and kept it, and it's been on my desk at work, and now I work from home, so it's on my desk at home, and it's been that way all these many years. So it's kind of like my little...
like your little buddy?
My little buddy. He watches me when I work.
threatens you with
yes, he threatens me with a simulation. If I don't get this web app working the right way, I'm going to be assimilated. Anyway, James continues. He says, Brian, I like the question you posed about the Romulans potentially having the ability to mind meld. We got to talk about that. It would make total sense to me. I mean, we've already seen an almost psychic ability, Ramda, and while the Vulcan logic discipline is something that's learned, their telepathic abilities are natural. Who's to say their cousins wouldn't possess these traits as well? Yeah, I mean, of course, we come face to face with that this episode, so we'll kind of table that discussion right now. I've finally broken down and gotten the Picard novel on Audible, so I'll be giving that a listen here soon. I'd definitely be down for a discussion on it as well. Do I smell a Patreon? Yes, you do, James. Yes, you do. So we will be doing that Patreon soon, and we will let you know. And we're going to do it. It's going to be spoiler filled. So we're going to want those that participate are going to have read or listened to the book. And something that struck me that someone brought up, I forget who it was, but it was in the feedback about the show missing something. This kind of sparked a discussion about episode length and such. I feel like it's the way the show is being presented that seems off. Hear me out on this. We're getting an episode a week. Many are short, and like the first 3, seem like they could have been condensed down to 2. Well, I'm going to stop you right there. They were 2. That's the difference there. They were 2 episodes originally, so they got stretched out to 3. So
mistakenly, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I'm starting to think that now we're getting the benefit of that and having longer episodes the rest of the way.
I don't really think that.
You don't think it works out that way?
What we're getting now is a result of what they did in the first 3 episodes. I just don't.
Okay.
I think that I'm just going to maintain that was a misstep.
Fair enough. Would we feel differently about it if all the episodes were available at the same time to binge? If that were the case, will we really notice the sudden stops or the insertion of things in an episode that seem unnecessary, like the cold open flashbacks from episodes 2 and 3? To me, it feels like where they're choosing to end and start up episodes might be breaking up the continuity a bit. I say that because, like the other listener brought up, again, forgive me for forgetting who said it, the elements are there to make it compelling, and truthfully, it is compelling. To me, that thing that it's missing might just be how it's being presented. I don't know. Does that make sense? Just something to ponder, maybe. Anyway, great cast as always. Can't wait till Thursday morning.
Yeah, it does make sense to me. I agree that the presentation is a bit off. I think if they wanted to make it so that the show did well in binge watching, then they should have presented all the episodes at once. If all the episodes are available, I don't know. There are some people who do this, but I don't know very many people who don't just watch the whole thing and they watch week to week instead. I certainly don't. If all the episodes are available, I watch them all. But they made the decision to do week to week, so I think they should have packaged it better. Honestly, as I said, I'm still disappointed in the first 3 episodes. I feel like they could have done better, but you get what you get.
I think that you have to judge the season as a whole, but I was on a call Wednesday night. It's part of the Portal 47 Larry Nemechek does, and he was on our episode 4, our preseason roundtable. And I was listening that night. I wasn't really participating, but there was one of the people on that call who was talking about, like, they're pretty much kind of missing the whole episodic nature and wish that the whole season would have been available like in one shot. I mean, I don't really like stuff like that. I prefer to get stuff episode by episode because I find that I don't absorb the episodes as much. Like, I have to go back and watch the whole thing. Anything that I've binged like that, I have to go back and watch the whole thing to kind of remember what's going on. And I mean, to do rewatches, that's a different thing. But if I'm consuming something for the first time, I need to do it a little bit at a time. And I prefer this. I really do, because this, I mean, sometimes you can get frustrated, as I did around episodes 3 and 4 in this show, because I couldn't see where things were going. And that definitely gets smoothed over if you're binging. But for me, I just prefer it because I absorb better a little bit at a time like this. So I think after it's done, I'm going to binge it like crazy. But until then, I'd rather just watch, an episode at a time. So, and think about it for a week and absorb it for a week and just, bang it in my head, trying to.
You also watch the episodes like 3 or 4 times, a lot of times.
Or more.
So,
yeah.
Right. Most people don't do that.
Right.
Even if they have it week to week.
True. And I don't do that for all shows that I enjoy. Like, and I wouldn't even say I do it for just shows that I podcast about, but for the most part, it's the shows that I podcast about that I do this for. But, I watch multiple times, say for Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, shows like that, but it's rare. Usually I have to really love something to watch it multiple times. So, like, for example, Walking Dead, before we were podcasting about it, I used to watch it multiple times, but Star Trek, even if we weren't podcasting about it, I would watch it multiple times just because I just want to know it,
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I sometimes worry that if I did that, it would ruin it because I don't know.
What you mean, multiple times or?
Yeah.
Huh?
Because it's like a saturation. Like if I want to rewatch something, I'll usually later on I'll rewatch an entire season/series of something.
Right.
Like I watched Game of Thrones 2 or 3 times, but it wasn't like a single episode 2 or 3 times and then the next episode 2 or 3 times.
Right.
It was I watched all the seasons. And then before, I didn't watch it right when it first came out, but I don't know, I think it was like season 5 or something. I can't remember. But in any case, it was sort of late in the game. And before, I thought I would start in January, but it came out like in
April.
And I watched the whole series that was out. And then I watched the whole series that was out again because I just wanted to before it started in April because there's so much in that show that I couldn't remember everything. And even now, I still can't remember everything. And I've seen most of the seasons 3 or 4 times. So that's usually what I'll do. Like when I watched the 2nd season of Altered Carbon, I went and watched the 1st season again because I was like, oh, I'll just do this because it was great. Right. So I watched it all again, but I can't really do it that many times in a row, right? In the beginning.
I'll just say that when it comes to Game of Thrones, I did the exact same thing 1 year later. After hearing from you for about a year saying how great it was. And I mean, I don't like it. And I didn't like it.
I was not pushy about it, though. I just said, okay, it's great.
No, it was mostly others that were pushy about it.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
No.
Just so we're clear.
I got an onslaught from certain friends of mine. They're like, what? What? You don't watch that show? How can you not watch that show? You're crazy.
I said it was great. I think you'd like it.
That's all you said. And that made enough impression. After I heard it enough times, I finally like, okay, I'll give it another shot. Because I gave it multiple shots, but I kept on stopping in season. I didn't make it all the way through season 1. Okay, we got one more bit of feedback.
We got way off there.
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
I know. The rise and fall of Game of Thrones. Anyway, all right. Fred from the Netherlands. says Dr. Soji Asha is not the best scientist, okay? Her degree is in psychology or what? The tools she used to test how old her stuff is could be malfunctioning, for instance, by repeating the first result every time. She should have tested something newer or older from her room at least once. Furthermore, why didn't she point it at herself? 37 months? Possibly it can only measure the age of something inert, not living. But if so, would it do it with a scent? I don't know what that is.
Well, I will say that she probably should have pointed it at something that she knew wasn't 37 months, like something recent, and that would have at least kind of proved that it wasn't stuck on 37 months. But yeah.
Didn't someone already talk about this?
Somebody
week?
did.
That's what I was going to say. I think somebody already mentioned this last week about how a real scientist would have confirmed whether or not the machine was working by grabbing a different one.
I believe so.
Yeah. So we did talk about that. Were you asleep during that part of the recording, Fred? I know you're up late a lot. You should get to bed earlier. Oh my gosh.
All right. Let's get this show started. Okay, finally. Season 1, Episode 7, titled Nepenthe, written by co-executive producer Samantha Humphrey and, not ampersand, Michael Chabon, the showrunner, executive producer. So in other words, he did a rewrite on Samantha's original script. Directed by Doug Arniokoski. And I thought that was interesting because he used to go by Douglas Arniokoski on Discovery. So don't know when he changed.
Yeah, maybe somebody asked him, do you want Doug or Douglas? And he was like, doesn't matter.
Or it's too many syllables. It's too many letters. I need to shorten it down. The description from CBS.com, Picard and Soji transport to the planet Nepenthe, home to some old and trusted friends. As the rest of the La Sirena crew attempt to join them, Picard helps Soji make sense of her recently unlocked memories. Meanwhile, Hugh and Elnor are left on the Borg cube and must face an angered Narissa. And that's TVMA with language and violence with the air date of March 4th, 2020. And of course, it comes out March 5th, but it was available at 2:06 a.m., which I believe is the earliest I've seen it be available. The runtime was a record length, 59 minutes. So, spot the 47. Well, I failed you guys again.
I think what you meant to say was the writers failed us again.
Okay. But there are no 47s.
Not your fault if you can't find what's not
find
there.
Any 47s. So if there is one, you have to say
incorrect.
But in fact, it's more like because I couldn't find any. But
well, if you can't find what's not there,
I didn't really spend a lot of time looking. But
because they're not there.
True. That's the question that Michael Chabon has to answer on Instagram.
That's right.
Where are the 47s?
Where are all the 47s?
I gotta ask him that.
You should.
He responded to me today. That's the awesome part.
Yay!
Anyway. All right, Ruthie. Nepenthe. What did you think of this episode, and will it be arbitrary?
Of course. All my ratings are arbitrary. Oh gosh. I've thought a lot about this. Honestly, my knee-jerk emotional reaction the first time I watched the episode was to give it a 9.9. But I think I'm going to scale it back to a 9.8.
You're going to laugh when I tell you this. So my knee-jerk reaction was to give it a 9.8. And after I watched it 2 more times, I upped it to a 9.9. And I called it 9.9 asses deep in Romulans.
Oh my God.
Or what
that is such a visual.
Riker said. So
yeah, I do recall. That was funny though.
All right. So we got a shocking first rating.
Shocking. Nick from Arizona didn't like it. He said 5 out of 12 plot repeater fidget spinners.
Yeah, 5 out of 12. I hate to say it, Nick, but you're kind of standing alone on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody gave it like a really, really high one, but nobody gave it a really, really low one like that. So Jim from Florida gave it a higher rating at 8 out of 10 Imzadi.
James, the Augmented Sailor, says Nepenthe is 9.9 Vivine Wild Girls leaving the venom sacs in so we can all spew black bile and die. What a snarky little I love Kestra. Me too.
Fred from the Netherlands gives it 47 out of 52. There's our 47, which is roughly a 9 out of 10. Superb acting by 14-year-old Lulu Wilson. I cannot disagree with you there at all.
Me neither.
I thought that she was wonderful.
Spectacular.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Made for acting. Some child actors are so cringy.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh.
I don't know what she's been in. I think she's been in some other things.
She was in The Haunting of Hill House. The Glorias.
That's what it was.
The Clinic. Sharp Objects. Gone Are the Days. She was in Ready Player One. I don't remember her. Raised by Wolves, Cop and a Half, New Recruit, Annabelle Creation, Worm, WYRM, Ouija, Origin of Evil, Inside Amy Schumer, Teachers, Her Composition, The Millers, The Money, Deliver Us from Evil, Black Box, Louie.
Also known as shows that I haven't seen.
No, I've seen some of these, but yeah, most of them I haven't. Well, anyway, she's experienced. She's got chops.
Yeah.
Let's just say she was born in 2005, so that makes her 15. Yeah. Well, not 15 yet. She was born in October of 2005, so she will be 15.
Well, then hashtag Fred's right.
That's right.
Anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so she was great.
She was great.
I would not say that she was the only had the only great performance in this episode, though. So we'll talk about that.
But she was definitely knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, she was great, though.
Edwin from Arizona says 7.6. All you had to say is that dinner is served.
Yes. Donna from Florida. Love this episode. 9.8. You need to be Jean-Luc Picard. Yes, I agree.
Yep. Me too. All right. Rick from Cleveland says, what an awesome episode. I rate it 10 out of 10 Alexa upgrades with shields and anti-cloaking scanners.
Steve from Oklahoma City gives it 9 out of 10. Not for emetophobes. Fear of vomiting. Yes. There was
a lot of that.
2 vomits and a foam.
Yeah. Not only that, but people who, when they see vomiting, they throw up themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure there's a word for that, but it's not a fear of vomiting. It's a see-do kind of a thing. But I have a friend who's like that. She can't watch people vomiting because it'll make her throw up. All right. Jeff B. from Idaho says 9.9 burnt tomatoes out of 10.
Jeff, X-Force 11 from North Carolina, gives it a 9.5.
Brian from Hawaii says, I give Nepenthe 9.8 burnt tomatoes.
Wes from Minneapolis gives it 9.5 wood fire pizzas with tomato, basil, and non-venomous bunnicorn sausage out of 10.
But what is bunnicorn sausage?
Well, it is a unicorn bunny. So it is.
Bunnicorn. Okay. Interesting. I don't know how one would get such a sausage. Anyway, Kevin from the internet says 9 out of 10, mostly because they killed Hugh. I agree. I was mad about that.
And LT from NC is giving this one a 9.8 out of 10, puking Aggies. And sidebar, twice in one episode?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And a mouth foam.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to our yeses.
Yes!
Nick from Arizona says, each character on the Picard side of the two-hander got a good moment. Not really sure what you mean. What two-hander? What does that mean?
Two-hander, like there were 2 stories?
Maybe.
Borg Cube and the Nepenthe? Nope, there were 3. There was the ship also. don't know what he means.
Yeah.
Sorry. You'll have to explain that to us, Nick. We are confused.
Yeah. In general, I'm confused of your rating of 5 out of 12.
Yeah.
I can see in the 7s and 8s, but I can't see a 5 out of 12 is less than a 5. So out of 10. So
it is less than a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that means,
that's less than half is what he meant to say. Less than 50%. That's a failing grade.
Yes. I knew what I was saying. I just wasn't saying it well.
That's why I'm here for you.
You're always here for me. All right. Next,
we have visual feedback from Fred. His yeses are the close-up of O, for instance, when she says it must be chewed. Narissa holding a gun to Hugh's throat. Narek's ship leaving the artifact's hangar bay. A Vivine wild girl against the backlight. Kestra close-up with bow and arrow. Picard saying, "Are we safe here, Kestra?" Soji with the real tomato. Soji and Kestra at the dinner table with candles, for instance, when Kestra says, "I asked Captain Crandall." Riker and Picard sitting on the bench at the pond. Kestra saying goodbye to Soji with Picard in the background watching.
Yeah, certain ones of there that you had, I really like those two. It was a really good episode, I think, visually. So
yeah.
Jim from Florida has a few. Seeing Troi and Riker again. I mean, what can you say about that? Yes, of course, I agree. Finally seeing the conversation of Commodore O and Girardi. I largely agree with that, but I have more to say in my not good enoughs. Because to me, it was not good enough. But I'll explain. Seeing a glimpse of the destruction, and that's part of my problem, a glimpse. Rios suspecting Raffi. Oh, you like that Rios suspected Raffi. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
All right. James, the augmented sailor, also known as setting me up for failure, says, Troi becoming JL's Jiminy Cricket. I really think she helped him get his head out of his ass finally. I think JL was still kind of floundering in his own head before she spoke to him. It's funny, I used to think Troi was the most useless character in TNG, but her performance in this episode was amazing. I think with TNG, she was just written so campily, and Troi just never really had a chance to deal with something so heavy. The writing for her on this was just impeccable.
I think Face of the Enemy, the one where she taking the place of a Tal Shiar officer.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite Troi episode before this episode. I think that she was amazing in this episode. I think that this was Marina Sirtis's best performance on Star Trek ever by a wide margin. I thought that she was amazing this episode.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. And I also agree with your conclusion there. I think that Troi, and for those of you that aren't TNG watchers or don't remember, Troi is empathic. So she can sense Picard's emotions. That's why she can look at him and say, "You're in trouble." And she knows because she can sense it in him. And of course, it's not just that she's known him for 35 years. She's known him and she can sense him. So it's she reads him right away. And I think that she's the one character that can look at him and just size him up and saying, you're just not, and Riker too. I love, when they were sitting on the bench and he just, casually mentions, Picard's condition, because he doesn't even need to know about, any deterioration in Picard. He knows he's not the same as the Picard that we know and love. He's not the same anymore. He's affected by that condition.
And all the things.
And all the things, yes.
Yeah. I agree. I think Troi was amazing. I think Marina Sirtis did really, really well in this episode. And it was, I feel, just what the doctor ordered. Mostly.
Yes.
Okay, so going on with James, he says everything about Kestra, from her namesake of Deanna's sister to her adventurous and curious nature and her snarky attitude. Finally, a kid in Star Trek that isn't an annoyance. Another hats off to the writers on this one, and a wonderful performance by the young actress.
Yes, and what James was mentioning, Kestra was the name of Deanna's sister who died at
when she was very
young. It was in, I think, Dark Page. I think that was the Next Gen episode.
I think so.
Yeah.
When both of them were very young. Kestra was her older sister. Deanna was super young.
Yeah.
And Kestra was obviously also young.
Right.
I think Deanna was still a baby.
Yeah.
Okay. James says, the reunion of the Rikers with JL. I cried when he and Deanna hugged. This overall episode is a yes. It rivals the premiere for making me feel all the feels and have me hanging at the edge of my seat, literally shouting out loud at points when the only other person in the room was my 11-month-old, who gave me looks like, WTF, old man.
That's funny. Yeah, I had the same reaction as you. It really affected me on a very deep level. And it wasn't just that, we were like, I had to, when I first saw the episode, I had to like kind of say, well, is this because we are seeing these characters for the first time in a long time? Or is it more than that? And I realized on the second watch that no, it wasn't just nostalgia. This episode really hit the feels hard. It was well written. I think, I wasn't too high on that fourth episode that Shaban did, Absolute Candor, but I got to give him props for this one. So really do. Rick from Cleveland is next. He says, yes, for Easter eggs that make you think. Kestra, named after Troi's sister who died. Thaddeus Riker, Will's distant relative saved by Q in Civil War times. A Voyager reference. Yes, Death Wish, I believe is the name of the episode. Yes, for the Elnor and Hugh scenes. I love this dynamic, the two of them versus the Romulans, and then the Zhat Vash versus Qowat Milat showdown. Yes, for Hugh, going out heroically, hatching the plan to use the Queen's Chamber to take back the cube from the Romulans. I hope when 7 shows up next week, we see this as a reality and we get this cube full of XBs freed up from the Romulans. Yes, for Riker, not having changed a bit. You can take him off the starship, but you can't take the starship out of him. Shields up, cancel red alert. So perfect. Yep. Yes, for Deanna, calling Picard out for his insensitivity and really challenging him to be himself. I think she actually helped not just Picard, but also the viewer understand that Picard's behavior is not off acting or awkward writing. Picard is affected by his past, be it the death of Data, the synth attack, failing to help the Romulans, or the culmination of all. He has stopped being true to himself. He needed to call him out on this. This is an amazing comment. I couldn't have said this better myself. I would add that I think also the physical condition is also taking its toll on him. So it's a combination of all these things plus the physical condition. But yeah, totally 100%. She nailed him down. And this was the big part that I got out of this episode, that I realized all these feelings that I've been having for Picard and how he hasn't been Picard, like hasn't been the Picard that I know and love. I was right. Yeah, I mean, I was justified to have those feelings because he wasn't being Picard. And coming out of that, I had the same kind of feeling I had back, and spoiler for those, I won't say specifically why I say this, because I know a lot of you haven't watched Discovery yet, but I had the same feelings in Discovery season 1 when we found out the true nature of Lorca. And it was a very similar thing. It's like, yeah, Picard, he's not acting like Picard. Yep, he's not acting like Picard. This is not a question of characterization being off. This is a question of the character not being himself. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yes, for what the writers did with Soji this week. She was absolutely right not to trust anyone or anything. From her perspective, how can you trust anything is real? Then, the dynamic with Kestra, who was such a wonderful presence, honest and caring, and just genuine. Exactly what Soji needed to hopefully help her believe in someone again. I couldn't say it better myself. Again, Rick, you are right on the money. I loved Kestra. I thought she was great. She was just great. It occurs to me that there's a lot of Lwaxana in Kestra. The bright, humorous personality and presence. She was an unexpected delight and stole most every scene. Yep, I agree. I love that the writers have shown that the synth ban has such broad effects, that Thad's disease could have been cured if not for the ban is just heartbreaking. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming, but it does go to show you that there are things that you wouldn't consider. And that was definitely something I wouldn't consider. But
I was also heartbroken about that Thad's disease could have been cured. But more to say on that later.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Next we have Steve from OKC. He says, the boy with the stick got it done against bad guys with blasters. True.
Yep.
I enjoyed the Elnor scenes.
I did too.
I thought they were great. All right. Donna from Florida says, I think my favorite part was Troi saying, you had it coming. She was the voice of reason and finally woke Picard up. The Troi Riker family gave Picard the jolt he needed. They also refreshed Soji and gave her a new sense of purpose to find her home. You could have Captain Picard and he could have you, says Kestra.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was very telling. That it's literally a choice that the two of them can make to just decide, well, you know, he's my family and she's my family, you know? So.
Yeah. And finally, he says, yes, and yes, Elnor calls, she, this is Donna. Sorry, Donna. I didn't mean to gender reassign you. She, or maybe they, I don't know, really. I can't tell anymore. Donna says, and yes, Elnor calls the cavalry. 7 of 9. Although that chip was conveniently there when Elnor needed it most. Yeah, that was pretty Deus Ex Machina.
Either that or someone else had an extra one. Maybe Hugh had it.
I don't know.
Maybe Hugh had it. Maybe Hugh got it from Picard. I don't know.
Yeah, but why?
I don't know.
Maybe Hugh had one.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the scenes, she does show up and say, where's Hugh?
Yep.
Or maybe that was the scene in the ready room. In any case.
It is.
Maybe it was Hugh's, not Picard's.
Maybe we'll get a flashback from, 40 seconds ago or so.
40 seconds before.
Brian from Hawaii is next. He says, this was even longer than last week. The extra time really helps enable better storytelling.
Agreed.
It was really nice hearing the PAD acronym spelled out on a show.
What does that stand for?
Personal Access Display Device or something like that. I don't know. I think that's supposed to be PADD.
Personal Access Acronym Display Device.
Maybe.
I don't know.
The Gormagander mentioned cements Discovery canon again. Yeah, I think those people that say that Discovery isn't canon, I think just need to give it a rest.
Well, I don't know why they would say that. It's made by the people who make Star Trek. Sorry.
And especially if you love this show and you want to say that Discovery isn't canon, well, who's making this show and who's making the other show? It's the same people.
Truth.
Kurtzman was the co-creator of Discovery, and he's the co-creator of this show. And he's the Rick Berman of the 21st century. So, live with it, people. Riker's house has shields. He even had a line, shields up. Yes.
That was funny.
I loved it when Troi told Picard to be the person he used to be. Also, Riker called out the classic Picard arrogance. It's as if both of them are speaking for the viewers. Yes, on both cases. I thought that this was great. And I think that whole Picard arrogance and hubris has been a big theme of this show. I talked about this before. Finally, Lal gets a mention by Frakes on the Ready Room. Okay, well, that doesn't count.
Nope, it does not.
We finally know Commodore O is a Romulan, per mentioned by Frakes on the Ready Room, and that Romulans can do mind melts.
Again, doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
Sorry.
I don't know.
And that might have been a mistake on his part. He may have blurted that out and wasn't supposed to. So
yeah, I don't know. The jury's still out about the heritage of Commodore O, and she could be Vulcan, she could be Romulan, she could be have human, ancestor as well. And I don't really think it matters at this point. I know that she's just a bad. So I think that that's the thing, the take home there.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe the reason why Jurati lost her lunch was because perhaps Romulans aren't as controlled in their mind melds as their Vulcan cousins. Maybe that's why it was so shocking for Jurati.
Yeah, that could be.
Maybe. We'll see.
All right, we got 2 more yeses.
All right. Next, we have Wes from Minneapolis, who says, "This is by far the best episode of Picard. I honestly believed Riker and Troi would only be there for like a cameo, and that was that. But I was plenty surprised when they played an integral part of the story. I am actually feeling bad for Jurati now. I don't think she's going to betray Picard anymore. Her using a hypospray to knock her out so Narek couldn't track them was clever. And I just don't think that was knockout juice."
What do you think it was?
I don't know. I wrote it down. Let's see what she uses. Uranium hydride.
Uranium hydride.
Uranium hydride. And if you're not careful, it can cause neurotoxic effects.
Right.
And I think she was counting on the neurotoxic effects personally.
Yeah. And I think that she knew that it was going to knock her out and could possibly kill her. And I think that was why she, did what she did. Now, does the foaming mean that
she got the whammy?
Does the foaming mean that whatever was in her system has left her system? Or is that basically, if she wakes up again, will she be reactivated? That's what I don't know.
I don't know, but I personally, I tend to think that she destroyed that tracker.
I think so too.
And the uranium hydride did it. But the side effect was the uranium hydride also kind of destroyed her.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, one more.
All right, Ken from Chicago says, "Yes, the planet, old crewmates. Though, why the high heels?"
Yeah, I guess Ken is talking about Troi wearing high heels. That's probably Marina Sirtis, just because she does that. I don't know, but I've seen her wear high heels in person, so because.
Well, why not? A girl wants to look pretty, okay?
Yeah, well, she's short in stature,
Riker's tall.
And Riker's tall, so that's got to be part of it.
Jonathan Frakes is not a short man. He tall.
Yeah,
he's like 6'2" or something.
Yeah,
which is not as tall as my stepfather, who is 6'8".
Wow.
I know, he's tall.
All right, so let's go to our own yeses. And most of the things that I was going to say have already been said. But what about you? Do you have anything?
I think most of mine have probably already been said as well. I also enjoyed the "you had it coming" thing. I liked when she said that he needed to be himself, compassionate, patient, curious.
Yeah. And those are all the things that he used to be. And some of them he is, but patient and sensitive, I don't think are, because he almost needs to take sensitivity training at this point. But I will say I had just the one thing I liked, and I liked your comment, but when she mentions the ready room at the dinner table, and then of course at one point Picard says thoughts, which, he used to always in those kind of meetings, he'd say thoughts or suggestions, or, it was always these like one word things, or suggestions or options. But I like that. That was very Picard.
Yeah. Although it should have been the observation lounge.
It should have been.
Not the ready room, because I don't think the dinner table would fit in the ready room.
And I didn't catch that, but once I read that, I thought, yep, so I've got to play.
Incorrect. Yeah. I thought of it immediately when I heard her say ready room. I was like, ah.
I mean, some things did happen in the ready room, but yeah, whenever it was...
Yes, but the conference happened in the observation.
Yes, it did. I thought, and this was coincidental, but I thought that this is like the one episode of Modern Trek that had, after the opening credits, had the title show up. So when the opening credits finish, we see a graphic that says Nepenthe. And the only reason we saw that is because they arrived on planet Nepenthe, but I thought they need to keep doing that.
Yeah, I wish they would do that. I enjoy the episode title.
I always have. And, they weren't the only show that did that, but they were all the Trek shows all through from the beginning until Enterprise did that. And it's only been since Discovery that they don't. But yes, the streaming shows do it on the...
I think that used to be a style of television.
Yeah, a lot of shows did that. And
well, NCIS still does it.
Do they?
Oh yeah, they show a title every time.
Yeah,
and I love it.
I do too. That's all that I had, except I want to highlight, I mentioned in here, Marina Sirtis's acting. The one thing, and I think really highlighted this for me, was when Picard and Deanna Troi were in Thad's old room, and Picard asks her about seeing, I think it was something about like seeing Kestra, kind of deal with the pain of, getting over Thad's death. And you kind of expect Troi to, say, well, it's been tough or something like that. But instead, she just, says, it's so nice to have you here, something like that. But it was, I thought it was heartbreaking to see that, because it wasn't said. It was just, you could read it on her face that like, the next thing that she would do is probably go into her room and cry for a minute or two.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so touching. And that's why I say that she really, really hit it out of the park this episode.
Yeah.
Which is kind of upsetting to me because she's also in my nose, but I'll explain why. But it has nothing to do with her acting. All right.
I agree.
So let's move on to her nose.
No!
Nick from Arizona says, big music and oblivious characters are no substitute for meaningful dialogue or choices.
I need more.
Yeah, I'm not following, but...
I'm not either. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well,
Picard
was certainly oblivious at times, like, when he just shows up and, is trying to play devil's advocate there with Soji. Not the right time to do that. But
they certainly had meaningful dialogue.
Yes. So I don't know, but
yes, I don't know.
There's more that he says, and we'll get to it. I think it might be in your not good enoughs. But Jim from Florida says, the death of the Riker's son. We don't know who he is. I feel for them because I know the characters, but the trauma kind of fell flat to me. Was her son in a book that I don't know about? I don't know of any, so none that I know of.
Same.
So I don't know, but I will say, and as much as I've loved the Last Best Hope, I have not kept on I used to read quite a lot of books from, the Star Trek books from like the 80s and the 90s, but I haven't. That was the first book that I've read of a Star Trek book in probably 20 years. So I don't know. If it was, it probably would have been in the Titan books, because there was a number of books that talked about Riker and Troi being on the Titan. So if it was there, it would be there, but I don't know of any. And I haven't heard of there being one. So next thing he says is they kill off Hugh?
Yeah, this was also my no!
Yeah, I didn't take that one well.
I was pretty irritated. I had more to say about that. I think I put it later, though. I don't know where I put it. But if they come for any of the other originals, there's going to be hell to pay.
I agree.
If they kill off Seven, Troi, or Riker, there's going to be words.
I don't think that they will.
They better not. Strongly worded emails will follow.
All right. It's time to talk to your nemesis here, Ruthie.
James, the augmented sailor. He says, Hugh's death. That's one of the points I yelled out loud. I literally sounded like the segment bumper here with a huge no!
No!
Exactly. That's how I felt.
We all felt it.
Yep. Same things. No! That's more how mine was, though, because I'm, not Patrick Stewart. Anyway, he says the reunion of the Rikers and Picard. This was so bittersweet for me. I loved it, but at the same time, I'm seeing some of my favorite characters from my youth appear old. The last time I saw them all together, they were all in their primes. It got too real for me that this series is very probably the last ride of this generation in Trek. I don't want the game to end.
Well, when you say this generation, I think you mean TNG and not the whole Berman era. I tend to think that there could be more shows that, talk about DS9 or Voyager. I don't know about Enterprise. I don't know if there'd be enough market for it, but certainly I think I see demand for there being a 7 of 9 in the Fenris Rangers series. I've seen that quite a bit. So I think
no kidding.
So I think there could be more that comes out of the Berman era, and we'll see. Fred's one and only big visual no, one ridiculous unicorn rabbit. Can I admit something to you, listeners? When I saw that rabbit, I just thought it was a rabbit. I didn't see any horn on it, so oops.
What was this thing? I don't understand what this... Is that the thing that she handed him?
Yeah.
Did we ever see it alive, or was it only ever dead?
Yes. We saw a bunny. Yeah, we saw a bunny.
When did we see the bunny?
We saw the bunny when they first arrive on Nepenthe. I think that was the bunny that we ended up eating on the pizza. I
don't remember seeing any creatures.
Well, there you go. So I didn't see the unicorn, and Ruthie didn't see the bunny at all. So when it comes,
I saw the dead and skinned thing that she gave to her dad, but
right.
So
when it comes to us, when it comes to that, we have to say.
I think I was paying attention to other things.
Yeah, but I looked at that and I saw people talking about a unicorn bunny. I'm like, what? I didn't see. I saw a bunny, but I didn't see a unicorn bunny. And originally I thought, well, it's kind of weird that there'd be a bunny on this planet. Like, what? Why?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out because I just don't have any idea what this creature is. I thought, okay, she killed some kind of creature and skinned it, and they're having it on their pizza. Great. So that's literally all I got from that. Oh, my goodness. All right. Next, we have Donna from Florida. She says, maybe at the top of the episode, didn't Elnor and Hugh leave the chamber together? How did they get separated? And Narissa was pointing a blaster at Hugh. Elnor, you're wicked with a sword, but bring a sword to a gunfight? I think they left the chamber together at the end of the last episode, but presumably Narissa wasn't immediately there. So I assumed that Elnor was fighting off bad guys and got drawn away. But again, that's an assumption.
I think you're probably #Ruthie's right there.
Yeah, well, when she was interrogating him, she said the bodies of 4 heavily armed guards were found afterward. Or afterward found is how she said it. Was weird. Anyway, so clearly Elnor was there doing some stuff. But yeah, I just think that he got drawn away. I mean, it was very cat and mouse the whole time. So
Brian from Hawaii is next. He says, it wasn't believable the way Kestra was speaking about Data as if she knew him personally. And I had a take on this. I thought, well, first of all, of course, she heard a lot about him. I'm sure there were a lot of stories that her mom and dad told about Data. But the difference there is I think it wasn't just stories. They probably had holo videos that they could show him. We know that he had like holodeck programs that had Data in them. So I would think that, she could have seen that as well. Probably like footage from the wedding and that too. So I tend to think that like in the 24th century, you could know a person a lot better than you might typically know a person that you never met today. But I'll give you a real world example. And yes, this is familiar, but I think that this is probably true. And my wife would love it if she knew I was saying this. Robert Irwin, who you may know, but he's, of course, the son of Steve Irwin, who passed away from, a freak stingray accident in 2006. He seems to know Steve Irwin pretty well. And he was not even 3 when he died. But if you hear him talk about his dad, like he knew him, and he obviously wasn't old enough to like really remember a lot about him. But there's so much footage, the TV shows, but they also recorded a ton of stuff that never made it to TV. And there's movies, and there's so there's the home movies, and there's a ton of stuff. I've heard them talk about this. And obviously, now, of course, he's got Bindi and Terry, his mother. Bindi's his sister, to build upon that. But that's what I'm saying. I would think that it would be typical for, considering how many years Riker and Troi worked with Data, and, they were good friends and all that, they would have a lot of that kind of stuff that they would share with Kestra, and like, watching family movies basically. But I would think that she would know. So I don't think that it's that much of a stretch if you consider that. Especially when you think about, like I say, Robert Irwin is a perfect example. He knows his dad so well that he looks so much like him, for that matter.
I agree. I think it's totally believable when you hear enough stories about a person. You can feel like you know them. So I'm sorry it didn't work for you, though.
Yeah,
Brian.
Kestra texting under the table and finding the planet so fast from Crandall wasn't believable either. Well, I don't know. Is it because she was texting under the table, or that Crandall knew it right away? I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to see this Crandall in an episode to come. Like, I'll throw it out there. 7 of 9 and Elnor will end up on Nepenthe, and they'll need to get to wherever Picard is going, and they'll hire Crandall to take them there. That's what I'm thinking may happen.
Yeah, maybe. I think that Seven and Elnor are going to take over the Borg cube.
Take the whole Borg cube over. There you go.
Yeah. They're going to evict the Romulans, and they won't need to use the spatial trajector.
They'll blow them up for reals this time?
For reals. But
that's terrible. That is terrible. I don't want that to happen.
No, I don't think they're going to use the spatial trajector. But if they do, I think it's very plausible that they would just go to the same coordinates that
exactly. Why wouldn't they?
Were previously
right.
Plotted, I guess, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I didn't really mind that, honestly. I thought, well, it's on the one hand, it's kind of like, well, it's rather convenient that, of course, the guy that she knows happens to know the planet. And I mean, there are a lot of planets out there. So just saying one with 2 red moons and lots of lightning. Oh yeah, I know that planet.
What I kept thinking of is like, okay, who's an older guy than Patrick Stewart that could play an old captain? And it would be, it's not going to happen. But the guy you saw a couple weeks ago. Shatner. Oh my God. Wouldn't that be a coup?
Why would you ever think
It won't be.
I mean, I don't even understand why you would. I'm sorry. Does not.
It's not supposed to. It's almost a non sequitur.
Clearly, because he can't play a different character in a show. He's dead.
That's true.
In the Star Trek universe.
I don't think it's him. I'm just trying to think of who could play who's. Oh, I have another idea who it could be.
He's dead too.
No, he's not.
Just
Ian McKellen.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt it would be Ian McKellen though.
Anyway, we're gonna see that character, whoever it is, and I have a good feeling about it, but I have no idea who it is. So no, it won't be Shatner. That would be dumb.
That would. I would be mad at you.
You know what? If it does happen, you should be mad at me. The way O did the mind meld without asking was aggressive, reminding me of the Enterprise episode about mind melds as a form of rape. I can't disagree with you at all there. I thought that it was aggressive and kind of also reminded me of Valeris and Spock on Star Trek 6, that mind meld. It was kind of rapey there. And that's a terrible thing to think about with Spock. Why did Rios think that jumping to warp would help him lose Narek? I don't get it.
I don't really understand what you're saying here, but my explanation is he didn't jump to warp. He dropped out of warp to let Narek blow past them, then plotted a different course. So since Narek didn't know the final destination, that it should have worked if he hadn't been able to directly track them through Agnes. Now, if you're talking about the initial jump to warp away from the Borg cube, he had no idea that Narek was out there ready to track them or that they were being tracked at all until way later when they were on their way and they were like, we're being followed. So I'm not quite sure to which thing you're referring, but that's my answer to that.
Lastly, Girardi vomiting twice and foaming at the mouth once in a single episode is a little overboard. I know that my wife would agree with that because she gets sick at the sign of anyone vomiting. So she doesn't even like the noise of vomiting.
Oh yeah. I have a friend who's like that. She can't handle it. It makes her throw up. She hears it, sees it. She's like, oh, nope. All right. Next we have Wes from Minneapolis who says, the death of Troi and Riker's son, Thad. Unnecessary, in my opinion, but it works with the synth ban. Soji believing this is all a mind game and Picard being a jerk and letting her continue to believe that.
I can't disagree with the last part, but I can understand why Soji believes that this is all a mind game because she has definitely been through a lot. And, when you're told that you're not real, and then you're taken away from that with somebody that you don't even know. It reminded me a lot of like Future Imperfect or even Frame of Mind, 2 Riker episodes. So I don't know. I bought it. So Ken from Chicago is the last no. He says, the ship, characterizations, though we now know what she was told.
I guess Girardi being told by O.
Yes. I don't really know what you mean by characterizations, the characterizations of who were you talking about? LT from NC says, one big no is just that I know how many episodes are left this season. I cannot disagree with only 3 left.
However, for me, it's not that bad because I thought this was episode 8. Then I suddenly got an extra episode. So I was like, woohoo!
Yeah. Funny. And it was kind of like, could see when Ruthie found this out, it was kind of like...
Yeah, exactly. As we were talking earlier, and he was like, well, we have 3 episodes left. And I was like, 3?
Yeah, she says 3.
And I was counting, and I was like, 7. I was like, 9, 10. Wait, what? And I was like, oh, wait, this is episode 7, not 8. I was like, yes.
Yep.
I don't know why I thought this was episode 8, but like the whole time.
Yeah, but
anyway.
I agree. All right. What you got for nose?
Q getting killed off.
Yep, I agree.
I know it was already said, but I had to say it again. And if they, the writers, come for Troi or Riker or 7, I might blow a gasket.
Yeah. And my no is, and I had some not good enoughs, but I only had one no, and it wasn't really something in the story. It was the fact that Marina Sirtis was not a special guest star. She was in the guest starring credits at the end of the episode. So I was just like, I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I saw special guest star Jonathan Frakes, which I totally expected to see. And then I see nothing. And then it goes into the producer's credits and that. And I'm like, what? So I just think it's a travesty. And I actually asked Michael Chabon this very question. Like, why was Marina Sirtis not given the special guest star credit, whereas Jonathan Frakes was? And he didn't answer the question. He responded to the question, though, with his own, like, gee, I have no idea why that would be. So, which, I guess tells me that wasn't really his decision or not really his thing, but still, I think that she deserved it. So, if she comes back, hopefully she will have that credit. And if it's for nothing else, then I would have to say, Agent, you're not very good. So I think Marina Sirtis deserves a better agent.
Yeah.
To get her equal credit.
Yeah, I agree. She definitely needs that special guest credit. I think my only no is raw tomato.
Raw tomato?
I don't like raw tomatoes.
Okay.
When Soji took a bite out of the tomato.
Yeah. I just don't have any problems with raw tomatoes, so.
I know. I mean, I don't know, but that's fine. Most people don't have any problems with it, but I do. I don't like them.
Well, I guess I'll throw it out there that I did not see her almost looking like she was vomiting blood. Girardi, which turned out to be red velvet cake, which
that was funny.
Because originally I'm thinking, oh no, she's like that tracker is doing something to her, but nope, it wasn't that. All right, so let's move on to our not good enoughs.
Not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
James the Augmented Sailor says, so Commodore O was hinted at as not being Vulcan by Chabon on Instagram. Does that prove that the Romulans can mind meld theory? Was this hinting a red herring? Is she a half-breed security chief? Maybe the offspring of a half-breed science officer and Romulan? I need an explanation as to her origin. Well, I do too. And it does make me wonder if she could be like half Vulcan, half Romulan. That would make sense of the scene, I think, in episode 2, where Narissa mentions that O has been a valuable ally. So, maybe she's really not Zhat Vash. Maybe she's something else. But I don't know.
Who knows?
When I saw her with that hood on, I thought, oh, maybe she's, strangely enough, Kuat Malat. But no, I went back and looked at episode 4, and the things that we see Zani wear, they do not look at all like those kind of like hooded capes that O had in that, whatever you want to call that, mind meld flashbacky thingy. So.
Yep. Todd from Ohio also had this in his feedback, but not as a not good enough. He said, are Romulans able to perform mind melds, or is that just Vulcans? Because that flashback scene with Girardi and O, if O is actually Vulcan, her motivations are a bigger mystery.
In the Ready Room, this week's Ready Room, Jonathan Frakes says specifically that O is Romulan, which I think was mentioned earlier.
He says that Romulan lady with the sunglasses.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, did he mean to say that?
So either she is Romulan or this is misdirection. However, it doesn't make a lot of sense for there to be misdirection on this. Like, if she's not Romulan, she's certainly allied with Romulan. So I don't even think it really matters if she's Romulan or not. I think that she is a bad person, at least on our side. Maybe not as bad as Narissa. Narissa is, if she had a mustache, she'd be twirling it.
Yeah.
But
no kidding.
But
she is psycho.
I think that she has her reasons, but I think that that's about all I'll say. We don't know. We know what Jonathan Frakes said, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. But I don't think it's false either. So that's what I gotta say. Nick from Arizona says, Riker is obnoxious. Can anyone name a line he had that really worked and shouldn't be changed? Yeah, all of them. And I hate to say it, but Nick, I know that you're visually impaired, but I think something is getting lost in the translation for you. I think Jonathan Frakes is very much a physical actor. He was in Next Generation and in the movies, and he is here. Like he sells things with his body language. Like, for example, the Riker maneuver, right? That's a good example. Mm-hmm. But he was always very physical, like his mannerisms and that really sold things. And I think that the lines really work for the character. It feels like the Riker we know. It feels like those words. It feels like that attitude. But then again, I think Riker is more attitude than words. Like, it's just the way he carries himself. So, Nick, I respectfully disagree with you. And I'm sorry that his lines didn't work for you, but it really worked for me. It was a highlight of, I talked about Deanna Troi and Romina Sirtis being a highlight on this show, but Jonathan Frakes was great as well. I thought the I didn't mention this earlier, but this certainly would have been a yes. But that scene where he figures out exactly what's going on with Picard, he's like, well, you don't have to tell me, but this is where I see things going. And he basically figured out that Soji was an android, that she was related to Data somehow, that Picard's not the one on the run, that Soji's the one on the run. Like, he knew all of that. And Picard didn't even have to say one thing to him. So
yeah,
I don't know. It worked for me. It was Riker, and it felt great, and it felt great to see him again. And I still kind of wish that we had gotten a Captain Riker show. I think it would have been good.
Yeah, it would have been good. But he moved on to directing. So what are you going to do? All right, Jim from Florida says, how did Hugh and Elnor get separated? We last see them together with Elnor about to kill some Romulans. Then we see Hugh captured and Elnor running in after the XBs are dead.
I wondered about that too. Cannot dispute.
I previously gave my explanation. Then he says no major fight scene with Elnor versus Romulans. They left episode 6 with the ability to have a badass fight scene. At least we got to see him fight the sister for what it was worth. I thought there were some pretty good fight scenes.
I did too.
But I think, honestly, I feel kind of bad for Elnor because he learned a hard life lesson that others, especially the Zhat Vash, don't fight fair or honorably like the Coat Milat.
I agree.
So
yeah,
he kind of got fooled into letting her kill Hugh.
I agree. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Poor thing.
Yeah. Especially,
I mean, he's only 18 and he's never been out in the real world. He doesn't really know that people are mean and bad sometimes.
Especially if you're a Romulan.
Yeah. The Romulan that's not a Coat Milat.
You are, he's definitely not typical of Romulans that we've known. It's not to say that all Romulans are bad, but a lot of the ones that we've seen are bad. James the Augmented Sailor says, How does one bathe infected cells of a silicon virus in a positronic matrix? This seems like it would be a really convoluted thing. Like there's some kind of theoretical molecular transporter thingamadoo that breaks down a person into some kind of goo that can bathe in some kind of essence of android thingamadoo stuff to cure the virus? Treknobabble. Everyone, have a listen to the USS make some up. I know you guys can't play it. Yeah, and I didn't.
Yeah, that was, I think I've seen that before from probably you, James.
And I have to say that this is where a big part of that 0.1 deduction comes from, because I had similar feelings with this. I don't understand how it works, how it affects, or how a positronic matrix would help. It all sounds like made up stuff, although it would give Girardi as a cyberneticist and Doctor something she could do too, in some small part, make up for the death of Maddox. Okay, a very small part, but yeah, I don't get how that could be. It's very Treknobabble, but I think this is like a lot of the stuff with the Treknobabble in this show has to do with this positronic matrix. It seems like everything that the positronic matrix touches turns into Treknobabble, because it's kind of like, you know, the fractal neuronic cloning is somehow something that can allow you to clone data and make androids. I don't get it.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what Girardi could do, though. I mean, son is dead and gone, so she can't really fix him.
Well, she could fix it for other people, unless they time travel.
Right. I also thought the whole thing about the positronic brain is the cure thing sounded like nonsense that was just shoehorned in there to show some bad side effects of the synth ban. I mean, what she said didn't make any sense to me, and how could it work anyway if Data was the only one with an active positronic matrix?
Yes. And for that matter, you know,
so
we've said it before, but they could reactivate lore, you know, just for this one purpose. I don't know.
They could have, I think.
But they were banned, so I guess that's why.
Yeah, but I will say they mentioned in the novel that doing a complete and total ban was very draconian.
Well, it definitely
very
was.
Dark Ages. And I was like, yep, that's true. But I don't think we needed the novel to tell us that. We already thought that.
Right.
So. Okay, Steve from OKC says, I love that Elnor found the Fenris SOS, but how? In the whole cube, he happens to stumble into the one spot where Picard left it. And my response is, hand wave, hand wave.
Yeah. It was the other part of the 0.1 deduction there, because it's kind of like, huh? Where did that come from?
Yeah. I didn't really understand how that happened at first. I mean, the first time I watched the episode, I kind of thought, okay, I didn't really connect to me what that was exactly. And then I read the comments and I was like, huh, well, maybe Picard gave it to him. But then I watched the episode again and I was like, oh, no, that really is just kind of like, what? Again, as I said, Deus ex machina.
Brian from Hawaii says, the reason given for Thad's disease being incurable due to the synth ban is so overtly parallel to stem cell research limitations that it's painful. I found it very weak writing and groan-worthy, and my response was, I think that was the point. That said, I don't understand the mechanics of it, how a positronic matrix could cure it, but for it to be parallel to stem cell research, I mean, this is the kind of thing that Star Trek has done for many a decade. You know, tell these parallels to like the Outcast from Next Gen. That was, you know, a parallel to, you know, gender inequality and, you know, transgender kind of natures and things like that. Let that be your last battlefield. I think that's what it's called. The famous one from TOS where, you know, the one set of aliens, half of them have black on one side, white on the other, and the other half has white on one side, black on the other. Mm-hmm. Again, it's an allegory to racism and hatred. And yes, that's exactly what it is. So for this to be a parallel to stem cell research, I say, Brian from Y, yes, it is. And I have no problem with that at all, because that is a classic way of telling stories in Next Gen. So no problem with it at all.
Right on, right on.
Then he says, it's annoying how Soji doesn't trust anyone or think reality is real. Troi had some good insights about this, though. I think it's totally understandable given the circumstances. I mentioned it earlier, but Future Imperfect and Frame of Mind are examples of this, where, like, in the case of Riker, I think in the end he realizes, like, that this is all a ruse in Future Imperfect. But Frame of Mind, if you remember, he was really freaked out by the end. And I think Troi is very correct in explaining the abuse that she has undergone, and shame on Picard for not realizing it. But
yeah, Frame of Mind, is that the one where they try and fake him out to make him think he's a prisoner or a crazy person? Oh, that episode was creepy.
It was. Yeah. It all starts from a play.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was a good one. It was very good for Jonathan Frakes.
Yes. Why was the Fenris Ranger token hanging next to Elnor in the cube? Did Picard drop it and it just happened to be there when Elnor needed it? This was a borderline no to me. You know, we talked about it earlier.
Yeah. It irritates me, honestly. I find it to be kind of lazy writing, and I feel like we deserve better than that.
All they had to do was have Picard hand that to Elnor and problem solved.
Yeah, easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Yeah.
Doing this kind of stuff, like, I'm not really a huge fan of the Deus Ex Machina, honestly. Just kind of like, that's...
Yeah.
I mean, I keep hearing people praising the writing. I mean, the guests on the Ready Room, and how great the writing is. And I'm like, are you actually reading it? I mean, are you reading the same thing that I'm seeing? Because there are some things that I cannot say it was excellent writing about. And this is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier that I thought the writing on this episode was great, but it's not great uniformly. And I think this is an example here where it wasn't great here. I think there was a misstep here.
Yeah, there were a lot of great parts, but on the whole, I just cannot agree that the writing is this spectacular thing. Like, but did you see where you just decided to do this thing? I mean, I've said this before, and I mean, I can go with a certain amount of coincidence, because I think if you don't have that coincidence, then you don't really have a show, or, you know, a certain set of circumstances or what have you. But there are some things that's just kind of pushing it a bit much. And that's kind of how I feel about this. If I have to hand wave, then...
Yeah, it's not great.
No, not great. Do better.
Especially that particular one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next we have Wes from Minneapolis. He says, I was shocked when Narissa killed Hugh. 28 years after we were first introduced to him, he's senselessly killed off. That was sad to see.
I agree.
Except for I had it in my nose.
Ken from Chicago says, huh? The cube. Coincidences? Though I now know why Hugh stayed.
All right. Edwin from Arizona asks, where was Elnor when the XBs were being killed? And Picard didn't tell them about the Borg cube, or Hugh. Didn't tell who? Oh, Riker and Troi, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant.
Yeah. No, he did not.
All right.
And I think Elnor was off killing more Romulans somewhere else, off screen. Yep. Donna from Florida says, question, did Elnor get Narissa with that knife before she beamed out? I say unlikely, and because the knife did clatter through it, stuck in the wall, so he didn't get her.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that she was stuck by the knife. So.
Yerp.
All right, it's now time for our not good enoughs. What do you have?
I have A couple of things. Well, one thing mainly. I did not like how flippity-floppity Agnes was. Honestly, it seemed like she was super committed to what Commander O showed her and what Commander O wanted her to do, that she killed Bruce Maddox. But now, for some reason, she's like, I'm going to change my mind now and take some uranium hydride so that I can basically kill the tracker. That just doesn't track with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the agony that she's experiencing, like I'm unsure, but I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of was like, oh, okay. Maybe she's feeling extreme guilt because she killed Bruce Maddox and she now realizes what's going to happen probably. I don't know why she would only realize this now, though, is that probably the rest of them are going to get killed too. I don't really know what's going on with her, and I don't really like it.
I tend to think that this has something to do with she acted this way because she thought that she was going to get in there and probably dissect Soji and read her memories and find out exactly where the homeware was, terminate Soji, and move on. And when Soji did not appear on the ship, she couldn't do it anymore. And then she started realizing, wait a second, this is not what I signed up for. I want to go home, And I think also she has been feeling the ramifications of her killing Maddox. And, I think she was probably intending on going back to Earth and going into hiding somewhere. I don't know, but I think it was kind of plausible deniability on her case. She's kind of like, well, if I go back home and I'm not involved, then they can't be asking this of me, so it'll be someone else's problem. So
yeah, or I can pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have the one big thing that I wondered, and I actually didn't have this in my notes until we were kind of talking earlier, but why didn't Riker and Troi go back to the world from Insurrection? Which I can't even remember what the name of that planet was without going back and looking at it. You watched that movie recently, didn't you?
Yeah.
I'd seen it maybe 7 months ago. I don't know, but a while back.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the name of the planet is, but it's in the Briar
Patch. Yeah. But supposedly it was this, essentially the Fountain of Youth planet. So why couldn't they go back there? I mean, they said that this planet, had these regenerative properties, but
the soil did.
Yeah, the soil did. But if that's the case, why not go back to a place where they probably would have been welcomed, but go back to a place where he could live? So I don't know.
Maybe, but we don't know that for sure. We don't know that would cure him. But if I were going to retire, that's where I would retire to.
Yep. Maybe the Dominion took that over or something. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Probably not. That was near the end of the Dominion War, so.
I thought that Riker putting in his 2 cents was kind of like, because Soji doesn't know him from Adam, so his vouching for Picard doesn't really mean jack diddly squat to him. Her.
Yeah.
I've known this man for 35. So? I've known you for 5 minutes. What does that mean to me?
Yeah, you got a point.
I mean, I was kind of like, okay, that's... It's like, sure, you want to vouch for your friend, but the only way that works is if you know person A and person B, and you can say to person A, person B is great, and person A knows you well enough to trust you, so they're like, okay, cool. But it doesn't work when person A has known you for 5 minutes. Right. Like, person A is like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what kind of she said. She's like, so.
Yep. I am a little disappointed in the reveal. Okay, before I say this part, I'm going to say that this is what I'm going to call retractable not good enough. So I am going to put in there a clause that this could be revoked at any time. It would have been a no if this had occurred in the last episode, but thankfully there are 3 more episodes, so they do have the ability to retract, to pull me away from my doubts and frustration with this. But I'm a little disappointed in the reveal of the mind meld between O and Girardi. Specifically, what we're shown there doesn't explain a lot. And there's very little context for those images. And it certainly doesn't explain to me why she needed to kill Maddox.
I agree. I can add this in my not good enoughs, I think, probably every single week. Why are certain people so determined to believe that synthetic life will destroy everything?
Well, and there was nothing in that showed me that synthetics did that. It just showed a bunch of things blowing up and people pulling their face off.
I just don't understand how. I mean, I don't understand it. I understand it for our time period now, and it's called the singularity,
right? Where
AI will eventually become, or machines will eventually become self-aware and then kill us all.
Right.
But I feel like they moved past that in Star Trek.
You'd think so.
So I don't understand why they think, Data was around for a long time and he was self-aware and he never tried to kill everyone. So I just don't understand this. It's like they're trying to combine the world of the Terminators with the world of Star Trek, and it's not working very well. Like, we need to kill the what's it called?
The T-1000?
No. The
Control?
Oh, crap.
From Discovery?
Yeah, exactly. That. I can't think of it. But anyway.
Okay.
It's the name of the machine that basically tries to kill everybody, and I can't think of the name of it right now. My brain is crying for sleep because it's 9:55 p.m.
And the name of what? In what?
Terminator.
Oh, the T-1000.
That's not the name of the machine. That's the name of the Terminator that gets sent back, and it's not even in Terminator. That's in Terminator 2. That's Robert Patrick.
T-800?
No, I'm talking about the AI that controls all the...
Skynet.
Yes, thank you. Gosh. Oh, Skynet. It's like they're trying to kill Skynet, but there is no Skynet in Star Trek.
It's called Control.
Yeah, but that was killed way back a long time ago. So maybe the Romulans are stuck in that time period. They're like, oh, this is going to happen. But I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't get it. And I need some explanation. I need some answers. And I better get them next week, or else I'm going to do nothing.
You're going to keep watching.
That's right. I might be a little bit more mad. But
if I don't get an answer to this, I'm going to keep watching the show.
Yeah, exactly. Darn it.
Now, I wonder, there's so many questions that I have about this that my brain is practically melting over the questions because there's so little there and there's so little explained, there's so little told. It's almost like there was more, but they didn't show that. Like we see, for example, a Romulan that we've never seen before with a disruptor to her head, shooting it. And it's like, well, what does that mean exactly? Like, who is that? And why are they doing that? And I don't get it. We also see an older O in that mind meld. So like,
I didn't see that. What were you talking about?
There is the scene in that mind meld. We see O is wearing some kind of hood. And
she was not older.
No?
She looked, no, sorry. She was exactly the same.
Incorrect.
For me.
I thought maybe you were talking about an old woman with white hair or something. I was like, I didn't see an old woman. But
no.
She did not look that old. Do not tell the makeup crew.
Fair enough. Okay.
But if you're talking about the woman in the hood.
Now, Agnes is the F-bomber. And I didn't even catch this on first watch, but there is a part there, I think, when Raffi is talking to her, that she uses the F word. So
something about, I just want to go home or something.
Since when do replicators look like 3D printers? Because Not all of them do, but I remember the ones that we saw on Mars do, and the one that we saw, it's not even the one, like when they're making food, like Rafi's using one that looks, like a replicator that we would normally see. But in sickbay, or whatever they call it on the ship, that thing that is replicated that Jurati uses, the hypospray, is in this replicator that looks like a 3D printer.
Right. But to me, that replicators looking like 3D printers makes more sense than how they used to look, honestly. Because, well, if you think about it, did they have 3D printing technology back in 1980, whatever? So this is something new that's been integrated. Like, oh, this makes more sense than the way that replicators used to work. Just something magically appearing. I don't know. To me, it makes more sense. And this goes along with the whole like updated technology type stuff.
All right.
Phew. All right, guys.
We are finally at the feedback section, so let's open hailing frequencies. All right, we've got first more voicemails, and this one is from Jeff from Idaho, and his first voicemail for us.
Hey, Brian and Ruthie. This is Jeff B. from Idaho. I've been listening to this podcast since day one, but I've only left Facebook feedback once for episode 1. I always intend to leave a voicemail, but the time between my first viewing of the episode on Thursday afternoon and the feedback deadline, which for me is 4 p.m. on Friday, seems to slip by so quickly. And I've never felt like I had anything of value to contribute to the podcast. No insightful commentary or references to the other series or movies, because I'm just not as well versed on the Star Trek canon as the rest of the listeners seem to be, and certainly as you two are. I didn't even know what 47 was until I heard this podcast. So this week, I didn't read any of the Facebook feedback, and I got my nerve up to leave this voicemail because I absolutely loved this episode. In my opinion, it was the best one of the season so far, and I give it a 9.9 out of 10. Up to this point, I haven't really loved the show. There have even been a few times where I thought it was awful, but this week's episode, in my opinion, hit it out of the park. I cried several times during the episode because I was so moved by the relationship between Picard, Will Riker, and Deanna Troi. When Jean-Luc and Deanna are alone in Thad's room and Deanna starts to well up at talking about her dead son, I cried. I really believed she was a mother who had lost her son, and my heart ached for her. I also thought that Jean-Luc's compassion was so fatherly and genuine. I particularly enjoyed Deanna lecturing Jean-Luc about his behavior and attitude towards Soji. It's the kind of blunt and honest tough love thing you can only say to the people with whom you're the closest. Again, it felt as genuine to me as if Marina Sirtis was counseling Sir Patrick Stewart about raising his own granddaughter. And by the way, I don't think there was a single JL in this episode, and that alone makes it at least a 9.5 rating for me. Like others have already said, I find that whole JL thing really off-putting. The actress who played Soji really came into her own this week as she wrestled with who she is and who she can trust. I felt like I really could understand and appreciate what this character is going through. She finds out she's an android. She has all these fake memories that feel real but aren't. She's been in simulations. She thought she was falling in love with someone who turned out to be using her. It must be incredibly confusing. Can you imagine waking up one day to find out that everything you thought was real is all nothing more than a bunch of advanced programming? I was a little sad to see Hugh die, but I think we all saw that coming. I like the Elnor character a lot, and I hope in the last few episodes of the season we get to see him do more of his thing. But I was fine with it this week because this episode was all about Nepenthe, and I really think that's where the focus should have been. Now, Dr. Jurati. That was a twist, for me at least. I thought in the last few episodes she was up to something. We already knew that she was visited by Commodore O, duh. What is up with those ears? She looks like the flippin' flying nun. We know Commodore O put her up to eliminating Bruce Maddox, although this week we got to see how she convinced her, which I also thought was a little flimsy. But I honestly thought that a lot of Dr. Jurati's consternation was an act. I thought that when Rios brought her into the galley to tell her he thought Rafi might be the one being tracked, that Dr. Jurati would foment those thoughts and help him get rid of Rafi. I even thought that when Rafi took Dr. Jurati back to have cake after her meltdown, that was Jurati's way of getting Rafi alone so she could put her off commission. Clearly, I thought Dr. Jurati was far more manipulative than she is, because as it turns out, she was exactly what we thought she was, trying to do the right thing and making the ultimate sacrifice. Guys, I look forward to this podcast every Sunday night. You are great. And if you're seriously considering a podcast for a TNG rewatch or any of the other series, count me in. Even... It's been a long road getting from there to here.
Oh my gosh. That definitely deserves a yes from me. That was pretty awesome.
Yes!
Well, I'll just definitely say, Jeff, thank you so much for that voicemail. It was a great voicemail.
It was great.
Yeah.
I was nodding my head and agreeing with almost everything you said, except for the part about Hugh. I did not see that coming.
I didn't see it coming either. I mean, I guess it makes sense that would happen.
Yeah, in hindsight. But at the time, I was like, no!
Yeah.
I was very sad. Upset, but yeah.
As far as doing another series, I'll just mention, of course, that yes, we do another series. It's called the Star Trek Discovery Podcast. I don't know, Jeff, if you're listening to us on the Picard cast feed, but just wanted to mention it. And for those, I'll even say this: if you guys aren't into Discovery, you should listen to us anyway, because you can find out what's happening on Discovery just by listening to us. So give that some thought, guys.
Ha! Sort of. Mostly. I mean, we don't recap the show, so
that's true.
You might be lost.
But, we're not a recap show, as you see. That show is exactly the same as this show, except instead of it being not good enough, it's...
Hello, this is Captain Tilly. What the hell? What the hell? Hold your horses.
An amazing character.
Oh, I miss Tilly. It really is a great show. I encourage everyone to give it a try.
And all I have to say is just the first 2 episodes. One thing I thought that maybe we should do if we have time, like if they say that it's going to be September when Discovery comes back, we should go back and do a rewatch specifically of the episodes Ruthie wasn't on the podcast for.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
So we're not committing to that. It's a question of when it comes back, but it was something I thought of. But yeah, anyway, Jeff, your thoughts were greatly appreciated. I totally agree. The things that you said about Marita Sirtis in this episode, I totally agree. Honestly, I think that she really, in my mind, came up a couple of notches in just who is a good actor from TNG, because she really, like, I don't know if she always had this in her, but if she hasn't, she's really learned her craft in recent years, because she was just great. Just great.
Yeah.
I felt for her so much. That moment when she just like kind of sucked it up, and it was kind of like, no, I am not talking about this, Jean-Luc. That. Did
you cry?
Of course I cried.
Okay. This is about of the two of us.
Yes.
I get touched, but I never really
Ruthie
cry.
doesn't have a soul.
That's right. I'm dead inside. I'm glad that you got your nerve up to give us feedback, because it was very, very excellent. You had a lot of great points, and I was nodding to most of them.
As was I.
And I completely understand the whole quick turnaround deadline thing. I've listened to podcasts before where I'm like, I should send something in, but then I'm like, I want
to reiterate that, because this came up a couple of times last week, because, you know, as many people that have joined the Facebook group, there are a lot of people that aren't on the Facebook group, and I don't think we do a great job of telling people that aren't in the Facebook group what the deadline is. The deadline is Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Now, we record shortly after that, and there are times, in fact, this is going to happen later on, we get a piece of feedback that came in the middle of while we were recording, and we'll fit it in, but it's no guarantee. Once we start recording, that's it. And sometimes we don't record until Saturday morning, but this is not one of those times. But anyway, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 Pacific, and I think that's like midnight GMT or something. Anyway, that's when you need to get it in by, because
5 p.m. Mountain.
5 p.m. Mountain. Sorry, people in Colorado. I didn't single you out.
You're just not as important.
Anyway. I would love to live in that, like Utah or Colorado. It's beautiful there.
It is quite. The mountains are very majestic.
All right. We've got more feedback, so let's move on. Our next bit of feedback is from the other Jeff, X-Force 11 from North Carolina.
Hello, Star Trek fans. It's a very emotional X-Force 11 after watching the last episode of Picard. I can tell you that the Riker homestead would be my dream home. It was beautiful, and I just love the family dynamics there. Kestra, Lula Wilson, who I know from The Haunting of Hill House Season 1, was a standout in this episode. Her looking at Soji and reading into Soji and giving that insight on who she was just really helped make that part of the episode so strong. And then you have Picard's trusted friends giving him the insight and the help that he needs to get back to the man that he needs to be. This episode was very, very good. I really enjoyed the dynamics of it. Just the storytelling of looking into Agnes's life and to see why she did what she did, that was just so heartbreaking, because to me, what Commander O did to her just seems like a sort of mental rape, and it just forced things on her that I don't think she would have accepted, and she's bearing up under the weight of that. I thought this was a well-written episode, a beautifully shot episode, and just a powerful episode. It's one that I've been wanting to get since we got this season started, and I'm very hopeful for what this portends for the future. I loved it, and I gave it a 9.5. And I just cannot wait to see what's next. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force 11 is out.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for your voicemail. And you had a lot of good thoughts. I agree. I want to live there too.
Yeah, it was pretty idyllic.
I know that would be a place that, my wife doesn't watch Star Trek. And the only thing that she's interested in is the fact that Jean-Luc Picard has a pit bull.
Haha, that's funny.
But if she saw the Rikers, or should I say the Troi Rikers place, we saw that at one point. There's like a thing that says Thad Troi Riker. That household is a place she would see that and she'd want to live there too. That's like the perfect place for her. So, and I would love it too.
Pretty cool.
Agnes is really having a tough time. I didn't fully realize how tough. I'm glad that she's having a tough time, because I was kind of wondering about her being a double agent, kind of evil in the background kind of thing, but I guess not. And I do agree about it being a mental rape. We talked a little bit about that. That's what it seemed like to an extent.
Okay. Next, we have a little bit of an unusual thing. We've got a voicemail from LT, but before we have that voicemail from LT, we have some written feedback. So from LT, from NC, he says, I'll say it now. This was possibly the best episode since the beginning, and my feels may need a little time off after this week because it was definitely getting a workout. So now we know what O said and did to Girardi at Daystrom. While this time I was bugged by the crooked sunglasses, the look in O's eyes when she whipped them off almost made me want her to put them back on. Plus, I thought that doing a mind meld without consent was a no-no. But now we know what happened and got a load of teasers on exactly what Agnes saw. And I expect someone will break down all those images. Fred.
I don't know if he will, but I'll tell you, on the CBS All Access site, it is not easy to step through those things because there is no, like quarter speed kind of thing. And I find that the pause is not instantaneous on CBS All Access. You press the pause and then you wait a second and a half and then it finally stops.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that I watch it through Amazon Prime, And I think it's a little bit better, but you can't watch it slow either. So, all right. He goes on to say the scene on the cube with Hugh and Narissa, that was a gut-wrenching scene because we knew that the Romulans would be pissed that he helped Picard and Soji. I so loved the scenes with the Rikers. While someone out there in the social media sphere will be complaining about it, I loved all of it. Only Will and Deanna could give Picard the ego check he needed to get his head on straight, and only they could do what needed to be done. I loved the actress playing Kestra, and I thought her scenes with Soji were well acted and touching.
All of that I agree with.
Me too. The cat and mouse games with Narek and La Sirena, that sequence was pretty cool because we got to see Rios in his element as the epic captain and just how well he and Rafi worked together in a crisis. Although there was a lot of yelling on his part, I must say. Rafi, do this. I'm trying. Rafi, do this. I'm trying. That was kind of funny. But anyway, all right, going on. He says, I did enjoy seeing the way Jurati wanted to bail on Picard now and how that sequence played out. Big props to Michelle Hurd for showing that Rafi has more to offer than being a hacker with mad skills and a substance abuser with a checkered past. Props to Alison Pill for the way she played that bit during her chat with Rios when she realized that she had been played. The fight on the cube was well done, and we knew there would be a showdown between the Kowat Milat and the Zhat Vash. I'll say it now that I was already misty from the Rikers and then Hugh. If I wasn't emotionally invested already, then we were left with the Ranger's distress beacon. All I hope is Elnor makes it off the cube and he eventually gets his rematch with Narissa.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think he will not be fooled a second time by her antics. Finally, he says, Soji, I did love the little Data-esque head tilt and how they are playing the angle on how she is reacting to finding out she is a synth. I know it has a Blade Runner vibe, and I must say, they are playing it pretty square down the middle so far.
We did not talk about the head tilt. Shame on us. I love that head tilt.
I thought somebody mentioned it. Well, anyway,
we didn't talk about it.
Well, now we are.
Now we are. because I saw that, and I loved how Riker saw that, and he knew right away, that's Data. Because she had it spot on, too. It was... just she nailed it. And I guess that was mentioned on the Ready Room, Will Wheaton asked Brent Spiner if she had talked to him at all about it, but I guess she just
Issa Briones
if she had discussed it with him, but I guess she just simply picked it up off of the episodes. And she nailed it though. She had it. It was great. And we've talked about a lot about the acting in this episode, but I will also give props to her. I think largely she's been great on the show. Been working, with some pretty good actors, especially Patrick Stewart, and she's been holding her own. So I'll give her the props.
Yep.
All right. So now we have a voicemail from LT because he thought of something else.
Hi, guys. It's LT, and I'm calling about the Picard cast. I just wanted to add something to my other comments that this episode definitely showed a lot of depth for characters, a lot of character development of how we see that Raffi is much, much more than just the well-connected, drug-abusing hacker, that she can play people. She's got those people skills. We see what happens with, our poor dear Aggie there, with how she can't handle much secrets. Something happens, she's not the one that's going to be able to put on the fierce face and lie. Just that whole sequence with Raffi and Agnes and the cake and the way she was playing her, she was being compassionate, but I think there might be an ulterior motive there. It just really worked out well. Of course, I thought it was funny that Rios was suspecting Raffi had the tracker, but when she realized what had happened, you saw what Agnes did. Just want to call and throw that in. Really looking forward to hearing the podcast this week. It was a great episode. And I know that you'll probably get a lot of feedback, a lot of voicemails. And I'm just, like I said, I just don't know what we're going to do. We're running out of episodes. Take care, guys, and I've been looking forward to listening.
Well, thank you so much, LT, for that voicemail. Sort of a supplemental voicemail after the fact, but thank you so much. Great supporter of us, by the way. All right, so
I think Rafi's ulterior motive for being so nice to Agnes was to calm her down.
Yeah, I think that Rafi has, I mean, we haven't seen a lot of this. We've seen her ability to work people, like she worked Emmy last episode, but she has really good people skills, and that we see in the book, and it's mentioned time and again about it. But I think that's part of what we see here. She's just trying to calm Agnes down, and I think that was her way. Originally, when she said that, I thought that she was going to drug Agnes, but that's not what happened. So when I say drug, I mean, like, you know, give her some of that, whatever that snake leaf is.
She's going to roofie her. Whatever the 24th equivalent of roofie is.
It had occurred to me, but I'm glad that that's not what happened. So she was just trying to, you know, calm her down.
Soothe the savage beast.
Yeah. And we got one final voicemail. This is in the form of an audio question from Edwin.
Hello, Brian and Ruthie. Edwin again from Arizona. I had two quick questions maybe you can help answer. I heard a lot from people who watch Discovery, and maybe I'll be able to get into Discovery as well when I get a chance, that this episode reminds them a lot of Discovery. Did you find that? Same comment? And the second question is, are they going to do like a 2-part episode? I don't know if you knew anything about that, or you think that might happen. Thanks again for answering my questions, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Well, thank you so much, Edwin, for your voicemail audio question. And actually, it's 2 questions. So let's give an answer. All right. First question. I don't really feel this is terribly similar to Discovery. I mean, I guess the question of the destruction of all life, I guess, has some similarity to the subject matter of season 2, but otherwise it doesn't feel like Discovery to me. Discovery is much more adventure, action, and it's like very fast paced, where I don't feel like it is that Picard is that way. Like, I don't think Discovery would have had an episode where Burnham goes back to, I don't know, like discusses things with an old friends or something like that. It doesn't feel like that would happen. I mean, we've had her go back to find out what's going on with Spock, but that was central to the plot.
Yeah. I didn't really get a Discovery vibe from this episode personally.
But we've said it before, especially you, Edwin. I know that you originally talked about your family and how they like Star Wars, and they like also the Kelvin movies. I think if they like that, they will like Discovery.
Yeah. There's
some bumpy writing. It doesn't start off well. They make certain mistakes, but just, you know, ride it out. And if you can get through the first season, and that's not even to say, it's the first 2 episodes, I think, that really aren't the greatest. I think it gets better and better from there. And it's a great show. We love it. So
yeah, it gets better, but at the same time, it does not get better. When I say it gets better, I don't mean it turns into Star Trek that you recognize necessarily. It's a very different kind of Star Trek, but the storytelling itself gets better. Now, in season 2, it gets better means it gets better more like Star Trek that we recognize, kind of.
Yeah, season 1, the story gets better, but it's not Star Trek-like until the very end. And but season 2 to me feels like Star Trek, and it's great. I mean, I just loved season 2 of Discovery. I thought it was amazing. And I'll say, for those of you that have felt that Picard, the captain, you know, the character, where he may have made you wanting, Pike will fulfill that need wholeheartedly. He is the elixir to your lack of Picard. Your second question about whether or not there's going to be a 2-part, the answer is yes. The last 2 episodes are a part 1 and part 2. And
well, there you go. I was about to say, I don't know.
So it is called Et in Arcadia Ego. So I don't know what that means, but it's obviously some meaning. It is a painting from Nicholas Poussin. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but all right. Next is now we're fully in the written feedback. Nick from Arizona is next, and he has a visual question. What is this Riker Deanna planet like? It's too bad Soji gives up the "this is all a simulation" argument without ever really interrogating it. Okay.
I kind of disagree with that, honestly, because I think that Picard used logic on her and told her how she could trust herself again by explaining to her, those tools that Daj had, that she has them too, that she can, she has these heightened defensive capabilities, so to speak, and that she can listen to people's heart rates and that kind of stuff. And I think probably what happened is that over the course of them being there, they were there for at least a few days, because Rios said it was a few days at maximum warp.
Right.
So,
right.
And we know that they didn't just go directly there. They had to cat and mouse with Narek a little bit. So it took them probably 4 or 5 days to get there. So I think probably over the course of that day or that time that maybe she sort of learned to trust herself again. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah. I think you're right about all that. I think it would take her time. And I think learning kind of the one line was very telling when she says to Kestra that until she heard Kestra, say that she was an android, she was still holding on to the belief that she was human.
Right.
And I totally understand that. That's, a little bit of that cognitive dissonance kind of working again.
Right.
So I think that eventually she had to look into herself and realize, well, I'm doing things that it's not normal for someone to be able to punch a hole into a floor and
yeah, without any damage to herself
at all. So yeah, I think that it's a hard lesson to learn, and it's hard to, if you were told that, you're not really who you thought you were. The visual question, what is this planet like? It's beautiful. It's tranquil. It is
lush.
I heard someone say it was like Alaska. I don't really know if that would be Alaska exactly. There's this like really beautiful mountain that has this curl on it. Did you notice that in the background?
I wasn't looking at the background.
There's a mountain where it has an overhang, and it's that's what it looks like anyway. It's almost like a mountain that's hollow, if you can envision that. It's the best way I can put it. Which I know we've seen that there are structures like that in the world, but it was really picturesque, very outdoorsy, very in the middle of nowhere kind of thing, like a cottage, a big cottage, but a cottage in the middle of nowhere by lakes and mountains and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
they were kind of sequestered away.
Yeah, like somewhere deep in Colorado or the mountains. That's the best way I can put it.
Lots of trees.
Grizzly Adams would live there.
Yeah, lots of trees, lots of foliage. Very green.
Yeah, very idyllic.
Very, very pretty.
Yes.
All right. Next, we have Jim from Florida who says, I liked the episode. It was great seeing Riker and Troi again. This was definitely an episode for the fans of the TNG crew, which I am definitely one. But the reason I gave it an 8 out of 10 is simply because it did nothing to move the plot along. It felt like a filler episode. The audience is on the same journey as Picard. We came there to rest and see old friends before the real action begins. All in all, still a good episode. I think Girardi's mind isn't completely broken because O only gave her a small glimpse. If she had seen everything, it would have broken her. The preview for episode 8 looks awesome, and I can't wait to see it.
I don't agree that it was filler. I think it was kind of like the story had to catch up to itself. There had to be kind of an episode for Soji to realize that she is what she is, and for Picard to figure out what the next step is. So for me, it made perfect sense. It was a bit of a respite from the one episode to the next. Like, basically, it's the episode that's going to catapult us into the finale.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call it a filler episode.
I wouldn't either.
I would call it a setup episode. It was a setup episode, but it wasn't a filler episode. So
yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's definitely not filler.
Yeah.
But, not everything is go, go, go all the time. You got to have a little bit of rest every once in a while.
To me, filler is like a bottle episode that, really does nothing,
Yeah. I think shows with 22 to 26 episode seasons have a lot of filler episodes. But I don't think this one was filler. I really don't think it was filler because I think that there was a lot of useful information that came out of this episode. So
to me, filler is shades of gray. James the Augmented Sailor says, this was a near perfect episode. I know a lot of people question why Daj was so immediately trusting in Picard, but Soji wasn't. Well, we've got her answer to that. She is in crisis as to what's real and what's not, and can't even trust her own feelings. It appears we have the answer to what the Romulan destroyer mythos actually is. I guess that's enough to drive someone mad, having visions of the end of everything. Thankfully, we know that in Trek, as well as the Doctor Who universes, that time is Q, Ruthie.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
And the future isn't set. Sam Beckett and Al Calavici are probably having Ziggy run the probability that saving Soji won't result in the apocalypse. I'm a huge Quantum Leap fan.
Yeah, this is a good show.
Sam Beckett, he looks a lot like Jonathan Archer. Just saying.
I know.
Yeah.
Weird.
This show keeps getting better. I can't believe we're almost done with the season already. So glad it's already been renewed for a second. Amen. I can't wait till next week. I don't want the game to end. Well,
me neither.
I agree.
All right. I think that is a good answer to the reason why Soji wasn't trusting. Okay. Neville from the UK says, I found the scenes on Nepenthe heartwarming and nostalgic. By contrast, the callous dispatching of Hugh was completely gut-wrenching. It appears that Agnes is very conflicted about her mission due to the self-inflicted coma that somehow disguised the tracker she injected. I hope that she is beginning to think Commodore O was presenting a lie to her in the respect that somehow sentient synthetic life forms somehow have an agenda to bring about mass destruction. During the attack on Mars, the synthetic in the work gang appeared to have had the command to rebel remotely messaged to him. This makes me wonder who was giving the synchronized order for all synthetic androids to rebel. I also want to know this. Soji's data-like head tilt was a joy to behold. I was delighted to see that Riker could still murder a recipe after all these years. It was also quite tragic that their late son Thaddeus could have been saved were it not for the synthetic ban. Suffice it to say, I thought it was a great episode and am dreading the end of what has been thus far a great series.
Brian from Hawaii is next, and he says, this was perhaps the best episode yet. Gee, Brian, you keep saying that. Frakes was at the top of his game. I'm curious to learn more about these mind-melding Romulans and what exactly they showed Girardi. It seemed like an attack on Earth, but I don't know why this alone moved her to kill Maddox. I hope she pulls through the coma okay. I agree on that whole thing about why this alone moved her to kill Maddox. I don't understand it either.
Yeah, I don't know. I need more. I keep saying that. I don't like it. I also hope she pulls through the coma.
I do too.
Because I still like her.
Yeah, I do too, even though.
Even still.
She did a bad thing. Very bad thing.
She did do bad things. Kevin from the internet says, first time writer, long time fan. Well, at least as long as the show's been on. This show just keeps getting better. So cool to see Riker and Troi again. I have to admit, I was confused at first when Kestra was called out. I thought she was dead, and it took a minute for it to dawn on me that they named her after Troi's sister. I know, bad fan. I loved seeing Troi taking Picard to task about the way he was acting. There's been some discussion that this is not the Picard that we know. Her pointing out that he's not acting as he should was great to see. I was hoping that would happen once he was around people who really knew him. Me too. He says, I think it's interesting that these folks in the future go from starships to farms in the wilderness. Maybe just to get back to some grounding after life in space. Almost like therapy.
Well, I think that they went there for the recuperative properties, but I wonder if Thad had improved, or at least, it took less, like he was not deteriorating as fast on that planet. Eventually, obviously it didn't work, but I wonder if it helped at all.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure it probably at least boosted his immune system, but there's only so much your immune system can do.
And they did say that he finally felt like he had a home world, so.
Mm-hmm. All right. He goes on to say, I don't have the same problem with Sir Patrick's acting as some others seem to have. I assumed he was acting as written, an old man on a quest, possibly his last. That means more to him than virtually anything at this point in his life. But knowing he has some limitations, but maybe that's just me. I could have done without the fake Frenchman act, but I can overlook it. I assume it was meant to be somewhat played for laughs.
Yep.
I think you assumed correctly.
Definitely.
Sad and very surprised to see Hugh taken out. I was hoping he'd hang around, even into the next season. But it was a pretty slick trick Narissa pulled right under Elnor's nose. But psyched to see him use Seven's distress beacon. And even more excited to see she's back in the next episode. I'm going to be very sad to see this season end and then have to wait forever for season 2. But I guess I can rewatch and pick up all the little things I missed the first go round.
Good feedback there, Kevin. Thanks for responding. I'm going to keep going, though, and go to Kim from San Diego. She says, I'm not sure how to rate this episode. I love the intro of Riker and Troi, but overall, it was so sad. There was a brief moment of joy when it seemed like maybe Seven will be coming back, but otherwise, it was a cry fest. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it, even though you cried?
Yeah. Well, heck, I enjoyed the Negan episode. So, and that was horrible.
Aye.
Faithful Chicky says, another excellent episode of Picard. And to my absolute delight, the previews show, we'll say it because it was telegraphed. The previews show that we're going to get Seven back.
Yay.
Then there's I don't know what that is. A
party hat.
And she sends it to Jerry O'Ryan and #Picard, and obviously sends it to us. So
yeah, I'm excited too. All right, Kyle from Alberta says, I am wondering if this episode foreshadows Picard's cure of Irumodic syndrome with positronic tech once finding the synthetic homeworld, since the Riker's son, Thad, could have been cured with one. In the spirit of twists, 10 out of 10 Hughes and XB's untimely death.
Yeah, and Kyle submitted this after our deadline, but we happened to catch it while we were recording, so it made it.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am still not sure why people are assuming that there is a synthetic homeworld, that there's some place where there are tons and tons of them or something, and that they're going to cause the end of the world.
I don't get it.
I don't know. Just because Soji and Daj were made in this place doesn't mean that there's a nest. I don't know.
All right, so we've got a final place for our own notes. So a lot of these things I've already said, but there are a few things that I haven't. Do you have anything?
I do. I am very troubled by the repeated use of the word real. I kept expecting someone to say something along the lines of who is to say what is real and what isn't. Since she clearly exists in the real world, she's not a figment of someone's imagination, so why do they keep using the word real? I mean, some of her memories might not be true, but I don't know that she's not real. I don't know. I'm kind of like, why do they keep saying that? And why doesn't someone tell her that? I mean, they basically say, yeah, you're not real, but that's okay. I'm like, no, she's real. I'm sorry, but she exists. She's not a figment of someone's imagination, so she's very real.
Something I noticed when Rafi is trying to get them unstuck from the tractor beam, and she mentioned something about, Borg machine language or something. She looks at a room full of drawings that are mostly of circular shapes and some Borg-like shapes. I'm assuming this is from the Romulan XBs, but what does it mean exactly?
I don't know.
I saw a bunch that were like, they look like two circles that were, it was almost like two atoms with two electrons spinning around or something. I don't know, but two circles around two circles. But anyway.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny that Picard's inexperience with children is showing through, both in the fact that he doesn't know how to deal with a teenager and in the fact that he didn't realize that by telling Kestra that Data was her father, that she would blurt out the fact that Soji's an android.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I thought to myself, Picard, you are not well.
Oh, I just thought it was, I have no idea how children will act. And that the fact that they just say things like whatever's on my mind, I'll say.
True.
Kind of thing. I also don't really think I would be able to nap in a dead boy's room. I mean, I was like, oh, that's kind of, they don't have any other guest rooms. Oh.
Especially with all of these things there. And it seemed like the way that Deanna had opened that door was kind of like she had not opened that door in some time.
Yeah, like this is a shrine kind of a thing. I don't know. I would have been uncomfortable in that room personally.
Yeah. I really felt for Troi in this episode.
Yeah.
It's just really painful to see her go through that. And I wondered, they didn't mention her mother at all, but I know that some people hate her, which
I love her.
I love her too. I think she could be annoying, but like that one episode where she's stuck on the turbo lift with Odo in Deep Space Nine, that was great. That was a great episode. The cost of living one with the guy that has to go to die at 60. That also was a great episode too. So she
yeah. Oh yeah, that was great.
And the one with Kestra, that was also a great episode too. So yeah, she had a lot of great episodes, but she could be annoying at times.
Yeah, well, she was just very
larger than life,
unapologetic about the way. Yeah, she was very larger than life and unapologetic about the way she lived and wanted to live and behave. She didn't care. I think we're talking about how great Marina Sirtis is with her acting. I think Deanna Troi is still good at keeping a straight face, even when someone is insulting her.
Yeah.
Still being in counselor mode.
Well, she definitely was.
So I thought that was awesome. I was wondering, do Troi and Riker have pizza every night? Because Deanna was wearing a different shirt when they first showed up. So did she just change her shirt? Or do they have pizza every night?
Oh, I see what you...
She probably changed her shirt. But anyway, I just noticed that. I was like, man, she was wearing this one shirt. Now she's wearing a different shirt. Wardrobe change.
Yeah. Does Rios have an ashtray?
I don't know if Synthagar's ash. Oh my gosh.
We
funny.
Talked a lot about Marina Sirtis not being as a special guest star credit, but one other thing I noticed is that Harry Treadaway was not in the credits at all this week. I'm wondering if this was a mistake. This happened once on Discovery when they missed Wilson Cruz in one episode, and they later fixed that. So I'm really wondering if that's going to happen again here.
Probably, because we clearly see him in the episode. So,
and if that's what happened with Deanna Troi or Marina Sirtis here, if she was supposed to have the special guest star credit and she didn't, that's awful.
Yeah, they better fix that.
And just in general, they really need to take a look at those credits, make sure they're right, not screw them up. They've had a couple of screw ups in Discovery too. Like they got Olatunde's name wrong at one point. Osun Sadmi, which of course is a mouthful, but you should get somebody's name wrong.
Yeah.
He whose last name is mispronounced all the time.
Right. And my first name is misspelled all the time.
Right.
Oh, yes.
There is a mention in this episode of the Kzinti. That is a race. It's actually an interesting race because this actually comes from books that Peter David did. So he was, he's a novelist. He's done several of the Trek novels, but he had a species called the Kzinti, and he actually reused the Kzinti for a TAS episode that had the Kzinti in it. So it's kind of interesting, but they were pretty strange, if I remember correctly. But kind of Klingon-like, but look nothing like Klingons.
Interesting.
And we're pink.
Pink. Fun. I really liked that Soji said that she knows that he thinks he's telling the truth. Because really, to me, that's all the truth really is. We speak the truth, but it's only our truth. Like, it's the truth according to me. Like, just because you say something and you believe it's the truth doesn't mean that it is the truth. It's the truth according to you. So,
slight correction on that. So, I'll just say...
They're not pink?
They wore pink.
They just wear pink.
Yeah, they were in the episode The Slaver Weapon. So, that is the deal. Sorry, not Larry David. Larry Niven. So, a double. So, Larry Niven. All right, so that's it for our notes. So, let's move on to our shipwide announcements. Marina Sirtis is wearing the same wig and contact lenses that she wore in Star Trek Nemesis. When they were shooting this episode, they didn't realize that she wore contact lenses or a wig. So she says, "Oh, I stole the one from Nemesis, so I'll bring it in." So, yeah.
That's funny. I didn't realize she was wearing a wig either.
Yeah, her hair, I met her in person a year and a half ago. As I know you've seen the picture. She was at a convention here in Tampa. And yeah, her hair was kind of bleached when I saw her, but it did look quite a bit different and good, but definitely not dark. So, but of course she always wore those like dark contact lenses because she's got like very brilliantly colored eyes in real life, but she doesn't have black eyes. So this week's episode of The Ready Room features Jonathan Frakes and Brent Spiner, which we talked a little bit about.
And it was fun.
Yeah, and they had a little feature on the pizza. So
yeah, that's funny.
There's an interview on StarTrek.com with Jonathan Del Arco, and he talks about this episode and his character's death. It's kind of he shares a little message with the fans, and he's sad to see the character go, but it also fit with the story, so he was fine with it. All right, some news. We'll go through this really quickly. Sorry it's so long this week, guys, but it's your fault. You keep sending us so much stuff. There's work that has started on a Star Trek Voyager documentary from the same team that brought us Chaos on the Bridge, the TNG documentary from a few years ago, and What We Left Behind, the Deep Space Nine documentary. So apparently there was a Star Trek cruise this week, and they were interviewing people at the cruise. So cool. For those of you that are TNG fans, and I'm pretty sure that's most of the people that are listening to this, but not all, there was an episode called Relics, which has the return of Scotty from the original series. And a prominent feature of the episode is the Dyson sphere. And that was postulated by Freeman Dyson, who was considered a visionary in the 20th century. And he came up with a whole bunch of other things, but Dyson sphere may be his most famous. He died on February 28th. Think of just natural causes. He was 96, so obviously he lived a long life, but sorry to hear that he passed. And we missed mentioning it last week, but filming has wrapped on Discovery Season 3, according to several tweets from the actors and some of the crew. Doug Jones, Jonathan Frakes, and a few others tweeted about this. So, And there are some rumors that supposedly work is beginning on Discovery Season 4 and that it's been quietly renewed for Season 5, which is dumb. I don't really want to report rumors, but I just thought it was funny given the other thing. But it's like I could see them beginning work on Season 4 because there's another rumor that the Section 31 show has been delayed until 2021, that they won't actually start production on it until 2021. That, although that's a rumor, it's a pretty decent rumor because we know that Michelle Yeoh she's going to be in a Marvel movie and she's got some other things going on. So she's probably not going to be available for a little while. So that's probably accurate. But anyway, I don't like to report on rumors, but I'm just going to mention those things because I heard another rumor, of course, from that Discovery was being canceled. Which kills me because those are not true. Parent Analytics this week, Picard made the digital top 10, but it was down to number 8 with almost 43 million average demand expressions. I always forget the name of what they call it there, but that's just in the US. That's it. Ruthie, why don't you tell people how to contact us?
Okie dokie. If you would like to submit your theories and feedback, go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. You can call the voicemail 216-232-6146. You can send us an email, picardcast@talkthroughmedia.com. You can post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. You can also tweet us at Picardcast. We also want to, once again, reiterate that our feedback deadline is Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you missed that deadline, go ahead and send it in anyway, because it's possible that we could get it before we finish recording and use it, or we'll just use it next week. So there you go.
Great way you can help support us is to share us when we post on Twitter and Facebook, and the posts on the Facebook group that we just mentioned aren't shareable, but if you go to facebook.com/talkthroughmedia, our posts are posted there and for episodes, and those can be shared. So share them there when they come out there. You can really help by subscribing, if you don't already do so, in Apple Podcasts or the podcast client of your choice. While you're there, give us a rating or review. We did get one on Podchaser, so I want to thank Poitawan for their 5-star review on Podchaser. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
And for Patreon, our next episode will be a little different. So we're going to do the novel Star Trek Picard, The Last Best Hope, full spoiler edition. We'll probably talk more about that over the next week. So if you're not a member, join up at patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie and find out. It'll probably be in the next week or two. We'll have more information as it comes out. So that episode will be released as a Patreon episode, but we're going to do something different with that. We're going to release you'll get a more raw version of it on the Patreon, but then after the season's over, you'll get a more edited version on the regular feed. So we want to thank our Patreon supporters: James Robbins, Lawrence Todd, Fred Petrie, Clint McCollum, Kyle McAdams, Tim Vogel, Brian Shiro, Christoph Leckleitner, Jeff Bayako, Lee Radke, and our newest supporters. We got 2 new Patreons this week: Aaron Mays and Michael Carrier. Thank you so much.
Yay! Thank you.
And if you don't already do so, we do a little podcast on Star Trek Discovery, which you can get the episodes for Star Trek Picard cast on there, but that's called the Star Trek Discovery Podcast. We mentioned it a few times this week. You can also these days occasionally hear me on the Walking Dead Talk Through, but that's Kyle and Mark. But I was sort of on there this week, but sort of not. That's in for like 20 minutes of it. Our next episode is Season 1, Episode 8, titled Broken Pieces. We don't know who's written it, but it is directed by the person who directed Episode 6, Maya Vervillo. And we don't have a description, but it looks pretty good from the preview. But until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Ruthie.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.